Chapter 213. Are you all right? Li Daochong helped Ling Fei up from the ground and asked. I'm all right. Ling Fei stared blankly at Li Daochong, her pretty face flushed red. Thinking of the words she said to Li Daochong a few days ago, she wished she could find a hole to crawl into. His strength is ridiculously strong, why would he need you to protect him? Ling Fei was like a little girl who had done something wrong, looking down at the ground, not daring to look at Li Daochong. It's good that you're all right. Are you coming with me or going by yourself? Li Daochong casually asked. I'll go with you. Ling Fei blurted out, almost rushing to speak, only to find that she had lost her composure. Her desire to hug his thigh was completely exposed, her pretty face immediately flushed red. Then let's go. Li Daochong nodded, as if the others did not exist. He went straight out the door. Ling Fei hurriedly followed, for fear of losing sight of him. In fact, Li Daochong's pace was slow, as if he was taking a stroll. Lu Yu was still kneeling on the ground wailing, but no one paid any attention to him, until Li Daochong walked far away. The dead fatty finally came back to his senses. He managed to keep his little life. Song Fangrong stared at Li Daochong's back. Her two hands were constantly stirring, her lower lip was bitten to the point of being bloodless. She wanted to follow them, but she was struggling. Wang Shenjun and Chen Naiwu were both experts in the army. They attacked Li Daochong in a pincer attack, but one died and the other was injured before they could even touch a hair on his body. Just how terrifying was this young man's strength? Even a late-stage qi-gathering expert would not be this powerful. Could Li Daochong be at the peak of qi-gathering, or even a foundation establishment stage cultivator? Song Fangrong could not be sure, but what was certain was, based on the strength that Li Daochong had just displayed, in this direct assessment he was at least in the top 5. There was no doubt about Li Daochong's strength. It was reasonable to say that Song Fangrong didn't need to think too much about it, but she was afraid because Wang Shenjun had escaped. Wang Xingjuan's older brother, Wang Xinghu, was the examiner for the direct test this time. He was a basic sergeant in the cultivation army. Wang Xinghu's cultivation was not at the early stage of qi gathering, but at the peak stage of qi gathering. He was only one step away from the foundation establishment stage. In a year or two, with Wang Xinghu's talent, he would definitely become a foundation establishment cultivator. Of course, this was a story for later, so let's not talk about it for now. Where could Wang Shenjun go after escaping? It was obvious that he had gone to look for Wang Xinghu. Wang Xinghu knew that his younger brother had been beaten and even killed a soldier of the cultivation army. Even if this matter couldn't be exposed and he didn't dare to report it to his superiors, he could still avenge his younger brother. Song Fangrong was struggling in her heart. In the end, she didn't follow. In her opinion, Li Daochong wouldn't live for long. Wang Xinghu would personally act. Even if he didn't kill Li Daochong, he wouldn't be able to pass the direct test. After all, Wang Xinghu was the examiner. Song Fangrong thought about it again and again, then left the building and walked out of the city. In addition to Song Fangrong, Sun Wang and the other male student looked at each other, showing an expression of good luck. The two of them went out of the building at the same time. As for Lu Yu, no one cared about him. Lu Yu, who was as fat as a ball, breathed a sigh of relief. He leaned against the wall and gasped for breath. At this time, he was the only one left in the dilapidated hall. Fuck Li Daochong, even if I have to go bankrupt, I'll still kill you. Humph. Lu Yu spat out a mouthful of blood. His fat face showed a sinister expression. He supported himself against the wall and stood up with difficulty. Just as he stood up, Lu Yu shivered. So cold. Lu Yu rubbed his hands. The moment Lu Yu turned around, his chubby face collapsed. His eyes, which were only left with a single line, widened in an unconventional manner, almost bursting his upper and lower eyelids. A gray, almost solid humanoid figure stood behind him. There were 2 lines of blood on its face. A pair of empty eyes faintly emitted a dark red light. So fragrant and delicious, the grayish-white humanoid said faintly. A pungent smell of urine spread. Lu Yu was so scared that he wet himself. When he turned around, he recognized the figure standing less than 3 meters behind him. Tongue-pulling malicious ghost. This was the first target of the direct test. Killing it would give a direct card. Tracking it to its location would give a direct card. But even if Lu Yu cultivated for a few more years, he would still be no match for the tongue-pulling malicious ghost. How could he kill the dark ghost that even Foundation establishment cultivators had to be careful? A few seconds later, a heart-wrenching scream came from the dilapidated building. It quickly stopped, and everything returned to normal. In the building's hall, a fat but stiff gray corpse was laid on the ground. Its mouth was open, and its tongue was forcibly pulled out all the way to its chest. Lu Yu was dead. Student Li, thank you for saving me. Ling Fei followed behind Li Daochong like a little follower. After walking for a distance, she thanked him gratefully. No need to thank me. We're all friends, Li Daochong said with a smile. We're friends? Ling Fei asked in disbelief. Li Daochong's strength was beyond her imagination. In Ling Fei's view, it was already beyond her reach. To be able to kill someone at the early stage of the qi gathering in seconds at such a young age, what kind of monster was he? Ling Fei had never thought that she would have such a powerful friend. Whether it was her background, talent, or anything else, there was nothing praiseworthy about her. How could she have such a powerful friend? Isn't that right? You already recognized me as your little brother. Don't you remember what you said to me on Red Sun? Didn't you say that if I followed you and listened to my sister's commands, I would have a high chance of saving my life? Li Daochong teased. Is that so? Did I say that? Ling Fei laughed awkwardly. Her face was flushed red, and she wanted to bang her head against the wall. She wanted to show off in front of this little brother who looked clean, but in the end, she failed. You didn't say that, then didn't I save you in vain? Li Daochong said with a regretful face. No. We've said it before. Of course, we're friends. He, Ling Fei quickly said. That's good. Li Daochong's face showed a hearty smile. After a few words, Ling Fei's nervousness due to her awe dissipated a lot. Knowing that Li Daochong was so powerful, he still treated her as a friend. Her heart was filled with joy. Student Li, should we leave the city and find a place to hide until the test is over? Ling Fei suddenly asked. Hide? Why? Li Daochong turned his face and asked curiously. Because Wang Shenjun escaped. Ling Fei replied. So what? He won't live for long. He was hit by my telekinesis attack. Li Daochong was puzzled. Ling Fei was stunned for a moment. This guy was already so strong, but he could actually use telekinesis attacks. What kind of pervert was that? If he dies, his brother Wang Shenghu will definitely not let you go. In fact, you should have killed everyone just now, including Wang Shenjun. Ling Fei did not think that Li Daochong could fight against Wang Shenghu, even if he was already perversely strong. Kill you too. Li Daochong suddenly smiled and looked at Ling Fei differently. Ling Fei lost her composure and exclaimed, Student Li, you really know how to joke. You and I are on the same side. We're friends. After saying that, Ling Fei's heart became nervous for no reason. You know I'm joking. Why are you retreating? Li Daochong laughed. Is that so? Ling Fei's forehead dripped with sweat as she hurriedly followed him again. Don't you want to get the pass card if you hide? Li Daochong stopped and looked at Ling Fei and asked. You had a conflict with Wang Shenjun because of me. I don't want you to lose your life because of me. That would be too unfair to you. It doesn't matter if you don't get the pass card. Where there's life, there's hope. Ling Fei simply said. Don't think too much. Since you're here to participate in the pass test, there's only one purpose. Get the pass card. Otherwise, why are you here? For fun. Li Daochong asked. Ling Fei still felt that it was safer to hide. As long as the pass test was over, Wang Xinghu's power would not be so great. At that time, the military would come to pick them up. But just as she opened her mouth, she was interrupted by a loud noise. Boom! A figure crashed into the house in front of them like a cannonball, and the house collapsed. Li Daochong frowned. The figure that crashed into the house was Ding Tao. Under the impact, Ding Tao had already lost his breath. He couldn't be more dead. On the other side, Chao Wenxuan's hair was disheveled. Her eyes were pitch black, and her skin was dark purple. She looked terrifying. Chapter 214. Chao Wenxuan rushed over like a madman. Her hands were like dead branches, covered with a black scale-like substance. Ling Fei was so scared that she hurriedly took out her weapon. Li Daochong frowned slightly. These two guys had followed him all the way, but he did not expect that in just a few minutes they would be possessed by the dark ghost. With Chao Wenxuan's current state, Li Daochong could tell at a glance that she had been possessed by the wronged woman. Last time on the flying ghost shuttle, Li Daochong had a hard time dealing with the wronged woman, but now it was different from the past. After more than 2 months, Li Daochong had risen by 2 levels, and with his current strength of the late stage of qi gathering, the wronged woman was no longer a threat to him. However, this wronged woman seemed to be much stronger than the one on the flying ghost shuttle. Her speed was extremely fast. Chao Wenxuan, who had been possessed by the wronged woman, was like a ghost. Her body was floating in the air, and around her floated 3 head-sized stones burning with dark fire. Hoo! The 3 stones shot over like artillery shells. Even though Li Daochong's strength had greatly increased, he did not dare to use his bare hands to touch the dark fire, and in a flash, Song ink appeared in his hand. Shing! The blade light flashed. The 2 pieces of dark fire rocks were split in half and fell to the ground. Li Daochong did not expend any effort, but Ling Fei used all her strength to hack at the stone, and with a clang, she was sent flying. The dark fire invaded Ling Fei's body, making her feel as if her whole body was being pricked by needles, and the pain was incomparable. Ling Fei flew more than 10 meters and hit a wall to stop herself, but before she could stand firm, the dark fire stone came whistling over. Seeing that it was about to hit Ling Fei, a green shadow flashed. Li Daochong appeared out of nowhere, and with a slash of his blade, the dark fire stone was destroyed. Ling Fei looked at the figure standing in front of her in a daze, and an unprecedented sense of security spontaneously arose. Chao Wenxuan let out a scream like it came from hell, both her claws stretched out, clawing at Li Daochong's head. "Be careful!" Ling Fei cried out in alarm. Such a terrifying ghost, Ling Fei had never seen or even heard of it before. Too terrifying. Ling Fei's tall and slender body could not help but tremble. Bang bang. Sparks flew. Ling Fei couldn't see what was happening. When everything stopped, Chao Wenxuan's sharp claws didn't grab Li Daochong's head. Instead, Li Daochong grabbed Chao Wenxuan's head. What the hell? Ling Fei was dumbfounded. Chao Wenxuan's 2 claws danced about, desperately tearing at Li Daochong's arm, but that seemingly ordinary arm was like an iron arm, and did not care about the 2 ghost claws at all. Crack! Ling Fei could clearly hear the sound of bones breaking. Ah! Chao Wenxuan let out a heart-wrenching scream of terror, which pierced through the sky above the city. A few seconds later, the dark purple color on Chao Wenxuan's body slowly faded, and her skin returned to its original white color, and the black scales on her hands also disappeared. As soon as Li Daochong came into contact with Chao Wenxuan, the blood-boiling upgrader immediately reacted violently, and a powerful suction force appeared, directly absorbing the wronged woman attached to Chao Wenxuan's body. Beep! Killed 1 wronged woman, soul power gained. A notification sounded. Li Daochong's spiritual energy had clearly increased. The level of the wronged woman was relatively high, so it could be completely converted. Li Daochong's lips curled. He had managed to eat a bit of this meal, and his late-stage qi condensation spiritual energy had become even more vigorous and solid. Chao Wenxuan's body went limp as if she were dead. Ling Fei looked at Li Daocheng's hand on Chao Wenxuan's head. That bone-cracking sound just now, or could it be that Li Daocheng had crushed Chao Wenxuan's skull? Had he killed Dark Ghost and Chao Wenxuan at the same time? Ling Fei didn't know what method Li Daocheng had used, but Chao Wenxuan, who had been like a mad ghost just a moment ago, instantly drooped as if she were dead. What technique was this? Ling Fei was shocked. Is she dead? Ling Fei asked in a daze. She's not dead, she just fainted. Just now I shattered 2 of her ribs, but it doesn't matter. She'll recover after drinking a bottle of spirit liquid, Li Daocheng said as he put down Chao Wenxuan and poured a bottle of spirit liquid into her mouth. Li Daocheng then poured a vigorous stream of spiritual energy into Chao Wenxuan's body. Several minutes later, Chao Wenxuan slowly opened her eyes, her petite body trembling. Although she had been possessed, she could still sense everything that had happened. The wronged woman had not eaten Chao Wenxuan's soul. Perhaps she had not yet had the time. In any case, Chao Wenxuan had luckily managed to keep her life. Chao Wenxuan was dazed at first, but after a few seconds she came back to her senses. Seeing Li Daocheng, she hugged him. Li Daocheng, take me with you. I'm begging you, take me with you. I'll do anything you want me to. Chao Wenxuan begged. Her intestines were green with regret. She had suffered injustice in her hometown, and in a fit of anger, she had participated in the direct test. Now that she was here, she realized that this bit of injustice was nothing. She had always heard of how frightening dark ghosts were, but she had never imagined that they would be this frightening. Chao Wenxuan had encountered dark ghosts before and had even killed a few green ghosts with ease. She had believed that she was strong enough to pass the direct test. Now, it seemed that she had been naive. In less than 2 hours after entering the city, their entire team had been utterly defeated by dark ghosts. Chao Wenxuan's mental defenses had completely collapsed. She couldn't even muster the slightest desire to fight. As for that direct card, she had long since forgotten about it. After witnessing Li Daocheng's strength, Chao Wenxuan wanted to follow him no matter what. As long as she could be protected, she was willing to do anything. Li Daocheng pushed Chao Wenxuan aside and said indifferently, "It might not be safe to follow me." Chao Wenxuan said in alarm, "It's even less safe if I don't follow you." Li Daocheng's impassive face revealed a hint of awkwardness. Taking Ling Fei with him was already very inconvenient. Taking Chao Wenxuan with him would only increase his burden. Li Daocheng said coldly, "If you want to follow me, I won't stop you. But you have to be clear that I'm not your bodyguard." Chao Wenxuan nodded vigorously. I know." Li Daocheng glanced at the sky, then without another word, turned and walked into the depths of Puyin City. Ling Fei and Chao Wenxuan glanced at each other, then followed. The deeper they went, the denser the dark ghosts became, and the more powerful they became. Dark ghosts below the great ghost level were too embarrassed to come out. Along the way, Li Daocheng did not attack. He would use his psychic energy to sense the number and level of the dark ghosts around him. Estimating that the 2 women could deal with them, Li Daocheng stood to the side. Ling Fei and Chao Wenxuan did not want to become a burden. When they encountered dark ghosts that they could deal with, the 2 women would enthusiastically charge to the front. When they encountered powerful dark ghosts, Li Daocheng naturally would not let the 2 women throw their lives away. After encountering dark ghosts again and seeing Li Daocheng insta-kill them, the shock in the 2 women's hearts grew stronger and stronger. One day later, the 3 of them were very close to the center of the city, but Li Daocheng could not sense the aura of the tongue-pulling evil ghost at all. Li Daocheng's group of 3 was not the only one at the center of the city, and the auras in the vicinity grew denser. Li Daocheng could sense the auras of at least 50 people within 2 kilometers. Whoosh! A red light soared into the sky. It was a signal flare. Someone had discovered the tongue-pulling evil ghost, but they could not deal with it, so they could only send out a location. Li Daochong tapped his foot against a building and leaped to the roof. Looking around, the location of the signal was at least 5 kilometers away. No wonder he could not sense it with his psychic energy. After confirming the location, Li Daochong leaped down from a building several dozen meters high, using the spirit void flying steps to the point of perfection. Ling Fei and Chao Wenxuan saw Li Daochong's movement technique, and their beautiful eyes revealed envy. For any cultivator, learning the spirit void flying steps was a dream. Only by learning the spirit void flying steps could one freely use spirit chi. This was the prerequisite for being able to fly on a sword when they reached the foundation establishment stage in the future. "Let's go and take a look," Li Daochong said as soon as he landed, and rushed in the direction of the signal flare. Ling Fei and Chao Wenxuan desperately tried to catch up, but they could only barely keep up. If Li Daochong had not deliberately increased his speed, the two women would have been left in the dust. Li Daochong felt that this was not a solution, so he stopped and waited for the two women to catch up. He took out the 2 treasures that Qian Chonghai had given him, a Dharma robe and a pair of gale boot. "Ling Fei, wear this pair of boots and deliberately increase your speed. Wenxuan, wear this Dharma robe. As long as it is not an evil ghost, it will not be able to possess you," Li Daochong quickly said. After he finished speaking, he threw the things to them. Then, he turned around and rushed away without any hesitation. Chapter 2:15. Wang Xinghu was furious. His younger brother, Wang Shenjun, had committed a crime in the military. He had spent a lot of money to bribe his younger brother so that he wouldn't be taken to court. However, Wang Xinghu had never imagined that the path he had painstakingly arranged for his younger brother would be the Yellow Springs Road. Wang Xinghu was nominally the examiner of this direct test. On the surface, he looked very impressive, but in reality, no one in the military was willing to take on this kind of mission. The death rate of the direct test was too high. Not only the students but also the soldiers who led the way. Due to the fact that the missions assigned to them were all extremely dangerous, the military's frontline forces had been stretched thin for the past few years, and they simply couldn't transfer more people to the front line. Wang Xinghu was willing to come for military merit. If he could successfully complete the mission, he would be promoted at least 2 ranks. Wang Xinghu looked at his younger brother's corpse with a gloomy expression. A few hours ago, the soldiers patrolling around the Flying Feather found Wang Xingjuan's corpse. After the military doctor checked, they confirmed that Wang Shenjun had been dead for almost a day. Cause of death: psychic attack. Wang Xinghu's mission was to wait for the students entering Puyin City to send a signal after discovering the tongue-ripping malicious ghost. Then, he would drive the Flying Feather to kill it. After seeing his younger brother's corpse, how could Wang Xinghu sit still? After greeting the vice-captain, he drove the military motorcycle into Puyin City with his younger brother's corpse. Along the way, Wang Xinghu bombarded indiscriminately. He used his spirit light spear and spirit chi bullets to vent the anger in his heart. Although he killed many dark ghosts, he also killed many students by mistake. Wang Xinghu didn't restrain himself at all. Instead, he became even more aggressive. Wang Xinghu didn't show any mercy to the students who witnessed it. Killing his own kind was no different from killing dark ghosts. Wang Xingjuan's cause of death was confirmed, but no one knew who killed him. Everyone who entered Puyin City was a suspect. Dark ghosts could be ruled out if they died from psychic attacks. The biggest suspects were the people in Wang Xingjuan's group. Wang Xinghu followed the path of Wang Xingjuan's group and found several corpses. However, it was obvious that these corpses had been killed by dark ghosts. They were all members of Wang Xingjuan's group. A total of 6 corpses were found. Including Wang Shenjun, there were 13 people in the group. 7 of them were dead, and the remaining 6 were missing. However, in a building, Wang Xinghu was secretly alarmed when he discovered Lu Yu's corpse. It was obvious that Lu Yu had been killed by the tongue-ripping ghost. There were obvious traces of a struggle in the lobby of the building. Wang Xinghu also found his brother's footprints here. As a scout, Wang Xinghu confirmed that his younger brother had escaped after being injured by someone from the traces on the ground. In other words, the place where the younger brother's body was found was not the first crime scene. The younger brother's injuries worsened during his escape and he could not hold on any longer. Through deduction, Wang Xinghu basically determined that the person who killed his brother was one of the other 6 people in the group. Song Fongrong could be eliminated, but the remaining 5 members were all possible candidates. Wang Xinghu quickly pulled up the information of the remaining 5 people: Ling Fei, Li Daochong, Chao Wenxuan, Sun Wang, and Wang Jianbing. Wang Xinghu frantically searched the entire city for traces of the 5 people. After a few hours, he only found Wang Jianbing's corpse. Puyan City was huge. It was a super city with a population of 50 million. Trying to find a few people in such a large urban cluster was undoubtedly like looking for a needle in a haystack. Wang Xinghu chose to fire a signal flare somewhere in the city. Since he could not find anyone, he gathered everyone to look for him. A few minutes after the signal flare was fired, several students who were closest to him rushed over. These students came from Kanwu Planet and another third-class cultivation planet. The weakest of them was at the early stage of Qi gathering, and one of them was infinitely close to the peak stage of Qi gathering. Their cultivation was above Wang Xinghu's. However, Wang Xinghu did not care about this group of people at all. Even the strongest student would not be able to withstand 3 moves from him. Strong cultivation did not mean that one was strong. Ning Xiujie, the number 1 genius of Kanwu Planet's Godwind Academy. Because he offended the son of the vice president of Kanwu Planet's Ash Wolf Association, he was ostracized and hunted down. His parents also lost their jobs because of this. Little Ning's family was in a state of chaos and had no choice but to migrate to a third-class cultivation planet. Ning Xiujie had no choice but to take the direct test, otherwise he would have no chance at the joint examination of 100 schools. Ning Xiujie was at the peak of the late stage of Qi gathering. He only needed an opportunity to break through to the peak stage of Qi gathering. Not only was Ning Xiujie's cultivation profound, but his strength was also in the upper echelons. He was definitely a tough nut to crack in the academies, but even with his strength and talent, he was not good enough on a second-class cultivation planet. However, Ning Xiujie was very confident that he would get the direct card. He had killed who knew how many dark ghosts along the way. But a few hours ago, Ning Xiujie's good brother had sent him a 10-second spiritual light video just before he died. After watching it, Ning Xiujie's anger rose from the bottom of his feet and his heart bled. The captain of the flying feather ship, Wang Xinghu, had actually killed an innocent student. His good brother of more than 10 years had accompanied him to take the direct test. They had agreed to take part in the joint examination of 100 schools together, but he had been beaten to death just like that. His brother had not died at the hands of the dark ghosts, but at the hands of his own people. Ning Xiujie could not accept it. His brother's death made Ning Xiujie even more determined to get the direct card. Only by taking part in the joint examination of 100 schools would he have a chance to turn things around. Thus, when he saw the signal flare shooting up into the sky, Ning Xiujie immediately rushed over. Ning Xiujie was almost the first to arrive at the area where the signal had come from. However, when he arrived, he did not find any malicious ghosts, only Wang Xinghu and 2 other veterans. At the same time as Ning Xiujie, another student from planet Kangwu, Zhao Yaru, arrived. She was at the middle stage of the Qi gathering stage, and was a collateral disciple of a middle-class family on planet Kangwu. She had resolutely participated in the direct test because she had been ostracized by her family. As one of only 3 students from planet Kangwu to take the direct test, Zhao Yaru had also received the video. The three of them had formed a deep friendship over the past few days and had agreed to get the direct card together, but now only she and Ning Xiujie were left. When the two of them saw Wang Xinghu, unconcealable hatred appeared in their eyes, but they did not dare act on the spot because of Wang Xinghu's tyrannical abuse of power. Before long, more and more people arrived. The students present did not understand what was going on. Wang Xinghu sat in a chair with his eyes closed. No matter who came, he looked like he was meditating and did not say anything. Zhao Yara clenched her teeth and sent a telepathic message to Ning Xiujie. Big brother Ning, Wang Xinghu wouldn't want to gather all of us and kill us together, right? Ning Xiujie shook his head slightly and replied, "It shouldn't be. Wang Xinghu and the two veterans behind him may not be a match for our group of students. I estimate that there are at least dozens of students scattered all over the city. No matter how powerful the three of them are, they would not be able to fight against so many of us. I alone can hold Wang Xinghu back. Those two soldiers are only at the early stage of the Qi gathering, you alone can hold them back." Zhao Yara nodded, and then her beautiful eyes revealed a strange look as she said, "Then what is Wang Xinghu's purpose in misleading the public by shooting the signal flare and gathering us here?" Ning Xiujie's handsome face showed a cold expression as he coldly said, "No matter what his purpose is, when more people come, I will release the video and let all the students see it." Zhao Yara's heart tightened. "Big brother Ning, this is not good. I think it would be better to wait until after the direct test and directly hand it over to the military procuratorate." Ning Xiujie clenched his fists, his eyes were somewhat moist. He still could not believe that his good brother had died. If we hand it over to the military, Wang Xinghu will not die, at most he will be sent to the military court for trial. I want him to die. More and more students gathered. Soon there were more than 20 people present. Each of them had a strange look on their face. Wang Xinghu, who had been resting with his eyes closed, finally opened his eyes, stood up from the chair and waved his big hand. The veteran behind him threw out a large plastic bag. The veteran opened the zipper, and Wang Xinghu's body was revealed. Wang Xinghu said in a deep voice, "My brother was killed by his team members. Who knows the whereabouts of these people? Whoever can provide valid information will be able to get a direct test card." With that, Wang Xinghu pressed a button on his wristwatch, and immediately projected the images of Ling Fei, Li Daochong, Chao Wenxuan, and Sun Wang's spiritual aura. Almost at the same time, Ning Xiujie also pressed the button on his wristwatch, and a video of Wang Xinghu killing people appeared. Every student present had a look of horror on their faces. "Captain Wang, your brother's death is regrettable, but you ruthlessly killed the students who participated in the direct test. What is the meaning of this?" Ning Xiujie tried to control the anger in his heart, and asked as calmly as possible. Seeing the video, Wang Xinghu's eyes instantly turned cold, and the aura on his body became different. Chapter 216. Snatch the direct card? "Captain Wang, don't you think there's something wrong with your logic? You should be waiting for the signal on the flying feather ship, but you appeared in the city and were seen by 2 or 3 students who were on a mission. Then, they snatched the direct card from you? Is that necessary? Shouldn't they go to the flying feather ship? Who knew that you would enter the city?" Ning Xiujie said calmly. Wang Xinghu's fearless face darkened. He sneered, "Kid, this is a battlefield, not a court. What are you trying to prove by saying so much nonsense?" The students who gathered around were all furious. No matter what reason Wang Xinghu had, he didn't care about human life at all. "Captain Wang, don't you know that a life for a life?" Ning Xiujie had been suppressing his emotions, but when the image of his good brother's tragic death appeared in his mind, he couldn't hold back his anger anymore. His voice was still calm, but his tone was extremely cold. "Ha ha!" Wang Xinghu looked up and laughed. Then, he lowered his head and scanned the crowd. Finally, he locked his eyes on Ning Xiujie and said in a deep voice, "Kid, my life is right here. Come and take it if you can. Ning Xiujie was furious, but he didn't lose his cool. After all, Wang Shenghu was a military officer. If he attacked him, he would be offending his superior. No matter what reason he had, he would be punished by military law. The surrounding students whispered. Many of them were repulsed by Wang Shenghu's domineering behavior and stood on Ning Xiujie's side. Captain Wang, why did you kill those students? I don't know. If he really started a massacre, wouldn't we all be in trouble? The situation doesn't seem right. Let's retreat. A few students felt that something was wrong and were afraid. Kid, why aren't you talking? Humph, if you don't have the ability, then don't talk nonsense. Seeing that your cultivation is not weak and that you are of great use in this mission, I won't bicker with you. However, you can't escape punishment. You offended your superiors and started rumors, which is a big taboo in the army. If I don't punish you, then everyone will talk nonsense like you. How can I be an officer? Let's exchange 2 moves. If you can block 3 of my moves, then this matter will be written off. If you don't dare to accept, then kneel down and kowtow to me to apologize, then this matter will be over. Wang Shenghu could see that the students around him were doubtful. If he didn't show off his power, he was afraid that something might happen. Ning Xiujie was worried that he didn't have a legitimate reason to make a move. Wang Shenghu's words gave him the opportunity to make a move. I'll take it, Ning Xiujie said without hesitation. When Wang Shenghu heard this, his gloomy face relaxed. All right, come on then. While the 2 of them were talking, a green shadow flashed from the darkness and appeared behind the several students. It was Li Daochong who had been running all the way. These several students were all at the middle stage of qi gathering. Sensing that someone was behind them, they all turned their heads to look. They saw a student wearing old training clothes appear behind them. Several people simultaneously probed his cultivation level. When they sensed that he was only at the 5th stage of qi refining, they all showed disdain. But a petite and delicate-looking girl kindly reminded him, "Student, this is not a place where you can come. It's better if you stay away." Li Daochong indifferently looked at the girl, but didn't reply. His expression had a trace of doubt as he looked at Wang Shenghu, who was standing in the middle of the field. When Li Daochong saw the corpse next to Wang Shenghu, he immediately understood what was going on. Wang Shenghu's movements were much faster than Li Daochong's expectations. "Hello, may I ask if the signal flare was sent from here?" Li Daochong tentatively asked the petite and delicate girl. After the girl reminded Li Daochong, she no longer looked at him. When she heard the question, she once again turned around and frowned. "I already told you not to stay here. Why didn't you listen? The signal flare was sent from here." Towards the girl's impatience, Li Daochong didn't care. He replied, "Oh, where is the tongue-pulling malicious spirit? Has it been killed?" The impatience in the girl's eyes deepened, but she still replied patiently, "There's no such thing. Captain Wang's younger brother was killed, and he was the one who sent the signal. His purpose was to gather the nearby students and find the person who killed his brother." Li Daochong's eyes slightly moved. He continued to ask, "Did you find it?" Just as the girl was about to speak, a tall young man standing by the side glanced at Li Daochong in disdain. He turned to the girl and said, "Xiaoying, why are you saying so much to this fellow?" Xiaoying pursed her lips. "Brother Yang, do you think that Ning Xiujie will be able to withstand 3 blows from Captain Wang?" The tall young man who was addressed as Brother Yang was called Yang Jin. He was a student of the elite class of a certain high school on the Tier 3 cultivation planet Hongyuan. His cultivation was at Qi intermediate stage, and there were 7 students from Hongyuan participating in the direct examination. Over the past few days, Yang Jin had become the leader of the group of 7. From the moment he laid his eyes on Xiaoying, his heart had already been moved by this petite and sweet-looking girl. Yang Jin's life on Hongyuan had always been smooth sailing. Regardless of whether it was in terms of talent or background, The Yang clan was one of the top clans on Hongyuan. However, Yang Jin was lustful by nature. Ever since high school, countless girls had become his playthings. However, due to Yang Jin's outstanding strength and background, most of the girls were willing to do so. One was willing to be beaten while the other was willing to be beaten, so there was nothing much to be said. However, if one were to walk by the river often, one's shoes would eventually get wet. One day, Yang Jin took a fancy to an innocent-looking girl during a dinner party. Yang Jin, who thought of himself as a suave man, felt that no girl would reject his invitation. However, that innocent-looking girl simply wasn't interested in him. After being rejected, Yang Jin furiously tried to put the girl under house arrest. Who could have thought that the girl had a powerful background? She was actually the youngest daughter of the chief of planet Hongyun. Due to her low profile, not many people knew of her true identity. That night, Yang Jin was beaten up by a bunch of masked men and thrown into a dustbin. The next day, Yang Jin was expelled from the school. If not for the Yang clan's influence, Yang Jin would have been doomed for life. Many scions from wealthy clans on planet Hongyun learned of this matter, and they wanted to get rid of Yang Jin. In the end, Yang Jin could only tuck his tail between his legs and transfer to an unknown university. After concealing himself for a year, he chose to participate in the direct examination. Although Yang Jin was beaten up and restrained himself, he couldn't stop himself from eating sh*t. After holding it in for over a year, when he saw Xiaoying, his heart immediately surged and his greed burst forth uncontrollably. Xiaoying's family background was ordinary. Her father insisted on marrying her to a playboy with a prominent family background. In order to escape the marriage, she resolutely participated in the direct examination. Yang Jin drooled over Xiaoying. After interacting with her for a few days, Yang Jin discovered that Xiaoying was a simple-minded girl who worshipped powerful cultivators. Thus, Yang Jin always maintained a lofty and glorious image in front of Xiaoying. Yang Jin was the strongest among the batch of students from planet Hongyun. Along the way, he spared no effort in displaying his strength. Xiaoying's impression of him also increased bit by bit. Yang Jin was narrow-minded and extremely jealous. Among the 7 people from planet Hongyun, one of them took care of Xiaoying. Although Yang Jin appeared indifferent on the surface, he was actually extremely jealous in his heart. Half a day ago, he lured that person into the area occupied by the innocent girl and was killed by her. At this moment, Yang Jin saw that Xiaoying was talking to a brat who came out of nowhere and was extremely displeased. Yang Jin's words were not friendly, but Li Daocheng's face remained expressionless. He ignored the hostile gaze that Yang Jin shot at him. With Li Daocheng's current realm, he was completely oblivious to such childish words and actions. When Yang Jin heard Xiaoying's question, in order to show that he had a unique view, he immediately put on a professional appearance and said, "Ning Xiujie is the strongest among our batch of students. I've heard of him before. It's said that Ning Xiujie's strength can enter the top 20 on planet Kangwu. No matter how strong Captain Wang is, he's still a qi-gathering cultivator. If Ning Xiujie were to fight seriously, I'm afraid that Captain Wang might not be his match." When Xiaoying heard Yang Jin's words, the way she looked at Ning Xiujie immediately changed. Her eyes were filled with admiration. Ning Xiujie won't be able to take 3 moves. As soon as Yang Jin finished speaking, Li Daocheng's voice rang out. Yang Jin frowned. "Brat, you're only at the 5th level of qi refining. What do you know? Go play somewhere else." Xiaoying looked at Li Daocheng with a strange expression and said, "How do you know that Ning Xiujie won't be able to take 3 moves? What proof do you have?" Li Daocheng's lips curled up slightly and said, "There's no proof. If he can't take it, then he can't take it." Xiaoying was originally curious, but when she heard this, the curiosity on her face disappeared. She said unhappily, "If there's no proof, then it's nonsense. Little friend, you should leave." No matter how big a lion in a cage is, it's no match for a wild lion. Li Daochong curled his lips and said. Chapter 217. As Yang Jin spoke, his hand flashed, and a fire talisman appeared in his hand. He was going to attack Li Daochong. When Xiaoying saw this, she hurriedly pulled Li Daochong away and said, "Student, your cultivation is low. This is really not a place for you to come. You should leave quickly." Li Daochong was about to launch a telekinesis attack, but he was accidentally pulled away, so he didn't really attack. Yang Jin didn't know that he had just walked through the gates of hell. At this time, he was still staring at Li Daochong with a bored face. Xiao Ying's kind action made Li Daochong restrain his killing intent, and then he said lightly, "I'm just watching. I'll leave right away." Xiaoying nodded and said, "Well, then you stand further away. Brother Yang doesn't seem to like you very much. If you don't want to be beaten, go somewhere else." Li Daochong didn't answer, turned around and walked to the other side. Xiaoying saw Li Daochong walk away tactfully, and then returned to her original position to look at the field. Yang Jin looked coldly at Li Daochong, who walked to the other side, and thought that he would teach this kid a lesson later. He actually dared to tear down his stage in front of Xiaoying. At this time, a student standing next to Yang Jin touched his chin and said, "Xiaoying, Brother Yang, that kid just now, don't you think he looks familiar?" Yang Jin said unhappily, "What? Do you know him?" The student shook his head and said, "How could I know such a person? Just now, Captain Wang released 4 images of spiritual aura. That kid looks like one of them." Yang Jin smiled disdainfully and said, "Really? I didn't pay attention, but how could this kind of trash kill Wang Shenjun? You must have seen wrongly." With that, Yang Jin looked at Li Daochong again. When he looked, his eyes suddenly froze. He saw 2 tall and beautiful girls standing behind the kid. The 2 women were Ling Fei and Chao Wenxuan. Yang Jin's eyes lit up when he saw the 2 girls. He had seen too much of Xiao Ying's petite and dainty figure, so he was a little tired of looking at them. When the 2 girl-next-door girls appeared, Yang Jin's temptation increased exponentially. That brat's luck was pretty good. In a different place, he had a beautiful woman to accompany him. Just as Yang Jin's heart was racing, a muffled bang rang out, giving him a fright. Turning his head, he saw Wang Xinghu's fist flying towards Ning Xiujie. Ning Xiujie raised her arms to block. A wave of qi spread out. This punch could topple mountains and overturn seas. Not only was it powerful, but it also carried a vigorous qi. If an underworld ghost were to be struck by this fist, it would be obliterated into nothingness. Ning Xiujie's arms went numb, the blood in her body churned, and she felt dizzy. Ning Xiujie was shocked. What kind of fist energy was this? How could it be so terrifying? She was about to break through to the peak of the qi-gathering stage, and was not far from the foundation establishment stage, but Wang Xinghu's fist gave her an unstoppable momentum. Wang Xinghu's square-shaped face revealed a sinister smile, and his other fist had already greeted him. Ning Xiujie did not have much time to react. She instinctively jumped back and kicked out. The best defense was offense. Ning Xiujie did not want to be beaten passively. Instead of defending, it was better to exchange injury for injury. Wang Xinghu had no intention of dodging. The second fist was not affected at all, and it did not seem to be very fast. The only change was that it took a step forward. Bang bang! 2 muffled sounds rang out. Ning Xiujie kicked Wang Xinghu's waist, and the latter punched Ning Xiujie in the chest. But Wang Xinghu's body did not move at all, while Ning Xiujie retreated more than 10 steps and staggered, almost falling. The strength of the 2 sides was immediately clear. Ning Xiujie looked at Wang Xinghu in horror. Their cultivation levels were clearly the same, but she was not his match at all. Not to mention 3 moves, she was already unable to withstand 2 punches. Was this the strength of a basic officer in the cultivation army? Ning Xiujie now had a new understanding of the cultivation army. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew past. Before Ning Xiujie could stand firm, Wang Xinghu followed her like a shadow. His body movement was as fast as lightning. The surrounding students exclaimed. Someone cried out, Captain Wang's spirit void flying steps is infinitely close to the Qi-controlling realm. He is not far from controlling magic treasures. If one did not look carefully at Wang Xinghu's body movement, they would think that he was flying. Ning Xiujie suffered a punch. The spirit qi in her body was already unstable and could not gather. She could only watch Wang Xinghu glide over. Wang Xinghu raised his fist again. In a hurry, a long stick appeared in Ning Xiujie's hand. It was a magic treasure of the upper grade of the human rank, the ebony stick. Bang! Wang Xinghu punched the long stick. Crack, with a crisp sound, the ebony staff was actually cracked open by the attack. The huge impact made Ning Xiujie fly backward again. With a bang, she crashed heavily into a house more than 10 meters away. The house immediately collapsed. This time, Wang Xinghu did not chase after her. Instead, he stood in place with his hands behind his back and stared at the ruins of the house that Ning Xiujie crashed into. The ebony stick blocked most of the power of the punch. Ning Xiujie stood up from the ruins with a dusty face. Looking at the cracked ebony stick in her hand, her heart was dead. One punch could crack a weapon of the upper grade of the human rank. What kind of strange power was this? The surrounding students were frightened. Their previous anger had long been replaced by fear. A few students who were indignant and even wanted to fight secretly rejoiced that they did not act impulsively. Otherwise, they would not know what had happened if they were beaten to death. Even if all the people present attacked together, they might not be a match for Wang Xinghu and the two veterans. At this time, Xiao Ying looked at Li Daochong with a puzzled expression. This young man had said that Ning Xiujie couldn't take 3 of Wang Xinghu's moves, but she didn't believe him. Now, with just one move, Ning Xiujie couldn't take it anymore. If Wang Xinghu hadn't stopped, Ning Xiujie would have already been defeated. How did he know that Ning Xiujie could not take 3 moves? Strange? Xiao Ying's beautiful eyes revealed a strange color. Yang Jin was at the middle stage of the Qi-gathering realm. This guy was only at the 5th level of the Qi-gathering realm. How did he see it? Could it be that he carried some kind of magic weapon that could detect one's true strength? Xiao Ying was puzzled. She was curious about this strange young man. Yang Jin pretended to be calm as he stood next to Xiao Ying. In his heart, he was gnashing his teeth. He did not expect that kid to be able to guess correctly. Big Brother Li, Wang Xinghu is too strong. We should take advantage of the fact that he is not paying attention to us and withdraw. Ling Fei said worriedly. You can't leave. When you came, he already discovered you. Li Daochong said lightly. Hearing this, Ling Fei's delicate body suddenly trembled, and she couldn't say a word. Chao Wenxuan's small hands, which were hanging by her side, couldn't help but tremble. When the two women came over and saw Wang Xinghu's body lying on the side, they immediately understood what had happened. Wang Xinghu made it clear that he wanted to take revenge for his brother. They were afraid that everyone related to him would suffer a calamity. Chao Wenxuan suddenly regretted following Li Daochong. She remembered what he said before. Following me may not be safe. Only now did she understand the meaning of those words. But it was already too late. Li Daochong's voice had just fallen when there were cries of alarm coming from all around. They saw a short sword flying from behind. Its speed was extremely fast. With a qi sound, it floated next to Wang Xinghu. Spiritual sense control. This was the second step of imperial sword flight. Wang Xinghu's control of spiritual energy was high. It was far beyond the expectations of the students. Although Wang Xinghu was only at the late stage of the Qi-gathering realm, he was no longer a cultivator. He was a cultivator. The short sword floating in the air had become the dagger of death in the eyes of the students. As long as Wang Xinghu wanted to, he could control the short sword with just a thought. In the blink of an eye, he could kill everyone present. After learning how to control treasures with spiritual sense, one's strength would enter another level. The terrifying thing about cultivators is that with just a thought they could control magical weapons to kill people from a distance. The higher the cultivation, the farther the range of killing people. Yuanian cultivators can kill people from 100 miles away without leaving a trace. Chao Wenxuan's legs went soft. She could barely stand. Trembling, she leaned against Ling Fei. With a sobbing tone, she said, "Sister Ling Fei, will Captain Wang kill us?" Ling Fei sighed in her heart. She did not speak. She did not know how to answer. Li Daochong on the side slowly spat out a word, "He will." Chao Wenxuan only felt dizzy. Her vision became blurry. Ning Xiujie walked out of the ruins. The ebony stick in her hand seemed a bit redundant. Was this the difference between a cultivator and a practitioner? Unable to avenge her good brother, Ning Xiujie's heart was unwilling. Her eyes were bloodshot. "Kneel." Wang Xinghu's voice was not loud, but it shook the hearts of all the students present. Some of the weaker cultivators were so frightened by this shout that they almost knelt down. Ning Xiujie's eyes widened. Wang Xinghu wanted to use her as an example to others. "I'll kneel to the heavens, to the earth, and to my parents. Why should I kneel to you? I'd rather die than be humiliated. I won't kneel." Ning Xiujie straightened her chest and replied resolutely. While speaking, several talismans appeared in Ning Xiujie's hand. They were all level 6 talismans. One of them was the powerful 5 Thunder talisman. Wang Xinghu smiled sinisterly. The short sword floating beside him shot out with a swoosh. Ning Xiujie was shocked. The talismans in her hand were released at the same time. Boom! With a loud sound, the talismans collided with the flying sword in the air and exploded. Waves of air rolled and spread rapidly. Many students were sent flying by the aftershock. The level 6 talismans only delayed the flying sword for a moment. In the flames, the flying sword flew out and shot towards Ning Xiujie. "Don't!" Zhao Yara cried out. She shot out like lightning. A long sword in her hand stabbed towards Wang Xinghu's back. Zing! The flying sword swept past Ning Xiujie's knee. With a thud, Ning Xiujie knelt on the ground. At the same time, Wang Xinghu turned around. With a karate chop, he easily knocked the long sword out of Zhao Yara's hand. He grabbed her hair and pulled violently. Zhao Yaru also knelt on the ground. "Who else is dissatisfied? Stand out for me." Wang Xinghu tightly grabbed Zhao Yara's hair and glanced around. None of the students dared to look at Wang Xinghu. They lowered their heads. Of course, except for Li Daochong. Their eyes met. Chapter 218. Li Daochong was not aware of Wang Xinghu's sharp gaze. His face was calm, without a trace of emotion. He replied, "Yes." Wang Xinghu's eyes flashed with murderous intent. Looking at the 2 girls behind Li Daochong, he said, "You 3, do you know how my brother died?" Ling Fei's small face was pale. Chao Wenxuan was already scared to the point that her brain was a paste. How could she still speak? Li Daochong was just about to speak. Within the range of the psychic power, 2 strange death auras flashed and then disappeared. Li Daochong frowned. He wanted to continue to lock onto the death aura, but he could not find it. Wang Xinghu saw that the 3 of them did not speak and coldly said, "You don't want to speak? If you don't want to speak, then kneel down. When you want to speak, then stand up." Ling Fei's lower lip was almost bitten. Chao Wenxuan's heart had already collapsed, and immediately wanted to kneel down. Just as Chao Wenxuan's knees were about to bend, Li Daochong held her, turned his face and said, "We are here to participate in the direct test, not to be judged. Stand still." Li Daochong's voice carried a trace of psychic power directly into Chao Wenxuan's sea of consciousness. With a buzzing sound, Chao Wenxuan felt like she was knocked on the head, and stood in place. Wang Xinghu's face showed a surprised look. This kid's cultivation was not high, but he had a backbone. But was it useful to have a backbone? If the 3 of them refused to speak, Wang Xinghu had 1,000 ways to open their mouths. Kid, you have guts. Do you want to take 3 of my moves? If you can take it, even if you killed my brother, I will not take revenge on you. Wang Xinghu looked at Li Daochong as if he was looking at an ant. Wang Xinghu killed a student, and in front of everyone, forcibly injured 2 students, and forced them to kneel, in fact, had aroused the public anger of all the students present. But the students were forced by Wang Xinghu's despotic power, and did not dare to speak out. In fact, they hoped that someone strong could stand up and destroy Wang Xinghu's prestige. But the appearance of Li Daochong not only did not make the students feel encouraged, it made them even more depressed. So many Qi gathering students did not speak. What do you think you are, a Qi gathering stage kid? Come out to make a fool of yourself and let Wang Xinghu abuse you? Xiao Ying looked at Li Daochong as if she was looking at an idiot. This kid really did not know how high the immensity of heaven and earth. Did he not know his own weight, Yang Jin looked at Li Daochong sympathetically. He had planned to teach this kid a lesson, but now it seemed that there was no need for that. Even if he was not of the world, he would not killed him. He would have to spend the rest of his life in bed for the rest of his life. Ling Fei, who was standing behind Li Daochong, tugged at him and sent a voice transmission. Big brotherly, a little impatience will spoil great plans. If he wants us to kneel, then kneel. Could it be that Wang Xinghu really dares to kill us in front of everyone? Li Daochong acted as if he did not hear Ling Fei's words, walked towards Wang Xinghu and said lightly, "Your brother was killed by me." As soon as these words came out, the surrounding students went into an uproar. But no one believed what Li Daochong said. He can kill Wang Xinghu? Then wouldn't I be able to kill a foundation establishment cultivator in seconds? Is there something wrong with this kid's brain? You don't have to risk your life to be in the limelight. The students looked at Li Daochong sympathetically. Everyone thought that he must have suffered some kind of shock. Ha ha ha, my brother was killed by you? Kid, you think too highly of yourself, with just you? My brother can pinch you to death with one finger. Wang Xinghu said disdainfully. Li Daochong showed a strange expression. These days no one really believed the truth. Xiao Ying was only a few meters away from Li Daochong at this time. From time to time she gave him a look, telling him not to show off, and even said, "Student, quickly back off, you will die." Believe it or not, didn't you say that you will take 3 moves? Why are you still not attacking? Li Daochong said impatiently. As for Xiao Ying's voice, he just pretended not to hear it. Ning Xiujie, who was kneeling on the ground in the distance, looked at Li Daochong in shock. This kid is courting death? Ling Fei was so anxious that she did not know what to do, although she knew that Li Daochong was not weak. Even a genius like Ning Xiujie could not withstand a punch from Wang Xinghu. How could Li Daochong be stronger than Ning Xiujie? Ling Fei did not believe it. Since you are courting death, this father will help you, Wang Xinghu coldly said, and with a flick of his hand, he threw Zhao Yaru away. Zhao Yaru's body flew upside down like a kite with a broken string. Ning Xiujie, regardless of the ligaments in her knees, slapped her hands on the ground and soared into the air, catching Zhao Yaru, who was flying upside down. The 2 people collided with each other, fell to the ground and rolled a few times before stopping. Wang Xinghu had used his true force to throw her. If not for Ning Xiujie's help, Zhao Yaru would have suffered internal injuries. Thank you, big brother Ning. Zhao Yaru was still shocked and turned around to help Ning Xiujie up. Ning Xiujie smiled bitterly. What are you thanking me for? I can only do this much. I did not expect Wang Xinghu to be so powerful. I naively thought that I could fight with him to avenge my good brother. I thought too highly of myself, a frog at the bottom of a well. After all, the Cultivation Academy is just a hotbed, no matter how powerful it is. Compared to the front line of the Cultivation Army, the difference is not just a little bit. If I do not die this time, in the future I will definitely join the army to gain experience. Big brother Ning, do we have to find a way to save that brainless brat? Zhao Yaru felt that she was able to escape from Wang Xinghu's hands thanks to that stupid brat, otherwise she did not know how Wang Xinghu would humiliate her, so seeing that Li Daochong might be beaten to death, her heart could not bear it. Who can save him? Ning Xiujie sighed, her voice was full of helplessness and humiliation. Wang Xinghu was just too strong. At the same time, in the field, Wang Xinghu turned into a shadow and disappeared from his original place. When he reappeared, he was already in front of Li Daochong. The side of the field exclaimed. Many girls turned their faces away, not daring to look. You are a bit stronger than your brother. Li Daochong suddenly opened his mouth. Wang Xinghu thought that Li Daochong was simply unable to see his movements, but Li Daochong's faint voice sounded in his ears. Wang Xinghu's pupils suddenly shrank. He felt that something was wrong, and punched out with even more strength. Pa! Li Daochong stretched out his palm and waved it like a fan. With a crisp sound, Wang Xinghu's quick and violent punch was easily deflected. What? The surrounding students stared at this scene in disbelief. Were their eyes playing tricks on them? Or did Wang Xinghu not use any strength in his punch? Everyone could not tell. Wang Xinghu did not believe it, and once again punched out. Pa! Li Daochong used the same trick again, stretched out his palm and gently patted it, and Wang Xinghu's punch was deflected. How is this possible? Wang Xinghu's nose flowed out hot liquid. His eyes were wide open like a dead fish's eyes. Damn it! Wang Xinghu's eyes flashed, and his fist shot out like a meteor. Pa 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 pa! A burst of crisp sounds resounded in the field. Wang Xinghu threw out more than 20 punches in a row, but even Li Daochong's hair was not touched, and all of them were deflected. 3 moves have passed. Li Daochong lightly said. My brother was really killed by you. If Wang Xinghu could not see Li Daochong's strength, then he would not be Wang Xinghu, but Wang Xiaohu. I told you, but you didn't believe me. Li Daochong shrugged. Li Daochong, you dare to kill my brother, I want you dead. Wang Xinghu roared, and the aura on his body surged. Didn't you say that if I took 3 moves from you, even if your brother was killed by me, you would not take revenge? 3 moves have passed. Li Daochong indifferently looked at Wang Xinghu and said, as if he did not see Wang Xinghu go berserk. I want you dead, is that revenge? You disobeyed your superiors, disregarded military discipline, and killed innocent people. I, as the commander of this mission, will execute you on the spot. Finished speaking, a cyclone rose around Wang Xinghu, and he roared, sky-piercing sword. The suspended short sword shot towards Li Daochong like lightning. Danger, dodge! Ling Fei screamed. Li Daochong did not move. He stretched out his hand, and a long saber appeared in his hand. He had not used song ink since it was refined. 9 split saber technique, first stage, sky-shattering slash. Li Daochong knew the power of the flying sword, so he did not dare to be careless. He immediately used the 4th stage of the 9 split saber technique. Dang boom! A crisp sound. Then there was a loud noise like an explosion, and the air waves rolled, whistling in all directions. The surrounding students were shaken and flew backwards. Only a few people could barely resist the explosion of the air wave. Wang Xinghu flew backwards like a cannonball. Puff! He spat out a mouthful of blood. His internal organs were flipped up and down, as if someone was stirring them with a stick. The air waves rolled, filling the sky with dust. A gust of wind blew, and the dust dispersed. All the students looked at Li Daochong in shock, who did not move at all. They were all stunned. What kind of technique was this? It could even block a flying sword. Wang Xinghu struggled to stand up more than 10 meters away. Blood flowed out of the corner of his mouth, and his eyes gradually dimmed. He held his breath and asked, "What rank is this technique?" His voice was not as strong as before and was very weak. 9 split saber technique. I'm not sure what rank it is. You can think of it as a mid-grade earth rank technique. Li Daochong put away the Tsang ink in his hand and replied casually. Mid-grade earth rank. What is your cultivation level? You can cultivate a mid-grade earth-rank technique to such a level at such a young age. Good, good, good. Wang Xinghu's voice became smaller and smaller. He finally said good 3 times and fell to the ground. His mouth was still moving, but there was a smile on his square face. My brother and I died in the hands of a genius like you. It's not unjust. The Federation has a successor. Bang, bang, bang. More than 10 parts of Wang Xinghu's body exploded from the inside out, and he died. There was dead silence all around. Xiao Ying's mouth was wide open, and she could not believe it. Ling Fei covered her mouth and looked at Li Daochong in surprise. She still underestimated him. Ning Xiujie and Zhao Yaru were shocked. At this time, they realized that they were just frogs at the bottom of a well. Yang Jin shuddered and wished he could slap himself twice. How could he have wanted to teach this brat a lesson? Wasn't he just courting death? Chapter 220. The 10,000 Ghosts Devouring System. Li Daochong's expression revealed a rare tinge of nervousness. The 2 streams of death qi were ridiculously strong. Not only that, there were at least several hundred streams of death qi of different levels surrounding the area. The malicious ghosts' intelligence was close to that of humans, and they were no longer like drug addicts. While the humans were fighting amongst themselves, the 2 tongue-pulling ghosts had gathered all the dark ghosts in Puyan City and above. In truth, the dark ghosts had already finished gathering, but they had not attacked. Instead, they were quietly waiting. They were waiting for the humans to finish fighting, with some injured and some dead, before the 2 tongue-pulling ghosts gave the signal to attack. With the arrival of the flying feather, the dark ghosts saw hope in exterminating all the humans. After a blood-curdling scream, the dim sky was filled with shadows. Ghostly cries and blood-curdling screams rose and fell. In the blink of an eye, the entire area seemed to fall into the abyss of hell. Li Daochong coldly glanced at Wang Xinghu's corpse in the distance, anger rising in his heart. This fellow truly deserved to die. In an area so densely packed with dark ghosts, he clearly knew that there were malicious ghosts present, but he had sent out a fake signal in order to lure the students over. The students were not the only ones who could see the signal. The dark ghosts could as well. In order to achieve his goal, Wang Xinghu had indirectly helped the dark ghosts surround the students. Ding Fugue was so scared that his legs went weak. He pretended to be calm and shouted, "Everyone, get on the flying feather. Li Daochong, get out of here." Ding Fugue turned to the side, but there was no sign of Li Daochong. 10 some meters away, silver light flashed. Li Daochong had charged into the encirclement of 10 some dark ghosts, saving Ling Fei and Chao Wenxuan. There were too many dark ghosts, and the several dozen students were of varying levels of strength. The weaker ones were instantly drowned by the dark ghosts, their souls lost. They turned into grayish-white corpses that fell to the ground, their eyes filled with unwillingness. 60-some students had gathered, but in just 1 or 2 minutes, half of them had died. More than 20 veteran cultivators rushed down from the flying feather ship and fought their way into the dark ghost horde, saving some injured students onto the flying feather ship. Ding Fugue was at the peak of the chi refinement stage. He could deal with 1 or 2 green ghosts. If he ran into a big ghost, he could resist it with the countless talismans and magical treasures he had. But if Ding Fugue encountered a top-level ghost, he could only run for his life. Ding Fugue had actually wanted to run and hide in the flying feather, but Li Daochong was very close to him. If he acted too cowardly at this time, he would definitely leave a bad impression in this young man's heart. Although Ding Fugue was afraid, he still gritted his teeth and did not run away. When Ding Fugue was very young, Ding Reni had always told him that wealth came from danger. If he wanted to make a lot of money, it was impossible to not take risk. The current situation was similar to making money through different means. Ding Fugue didn't know why, but he felt that Li Daochong wasn't an ordinary person. At the same time, He felt a sense of familiarity at first sight. In fact, when Ding Fugui saw the dark ghosts flying in the sky, he felt like the end of the world. He felt that everything was over. This mission would end with the annihilation of the entire team, and he would also lose his life. Even so, Ding Fugui inexplicably felt that this young man might be able to save everyone. Li Daochong naturally didn't know what Ding Fugui was thinking. He was very busy right now, and his blood was still flowing. It was Li Daochong's first time seeing so many high-level dark ghosts. With Song ink in hand, every time he slashed out, a dark ghost's dark body would collapse and disappear. Notifications kept ringing in Li Daochong's mind. The dead souls he absorbed were constantly converted into spirit qi. Li Daochong almost single-handedly killed all the dark ghosts within a 30-meter radius of him. The sudden attack of the dark ghosts caught the students off guard. The dark ghost's dark body instantly drowned the entire place. The students were thrown into disarray. Even with the help of the veterans from the Flying Feather, it was like throwing a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. Ning Xiujie, Zhao Yaru, and a dozen other qi condensation geniuses tried their best to resist, but they were beaten back. 3 early-stage qi condensation students were invaded by the death qi and lost their ability to fight. If the veterans hadn't come in time to save them, they would have become food for the dark ghosts. However, the Flying Feather wasn't safe either. A dozen dark ghosts had infiltrated, and the inside was a mess. Yang Jin's group of 6 was the first to leave. However, before they could leave, they were surrounded by dozens of green ghosts, including a few big ghosts. There were giant wolf ghost disciples, vengeful women, bear dark bodies, and vengeful spirit. In short, there were all kinds of dark ghosts. Fortunately, the 6 of them were familiar with each other. They relied on each other and fought together. They barely managed to resist, but they were beaten back. Soon, they retreated to the vicinity of the Flying Feather. The pressure on Yang Jin grew. He was the strongest of the 6, so he naturally bore the brunt of the attacks. At first, Yang Jin worked hard, but he gradually found that he couldn't hold on any longer. If he continued to waste time, he would be the first to die. When the 3 bare dark bodies pounced again, Yang Jin's eyes flashed, and he deliberately dodged. He blocked 2 of the dark bodies while the other one streaked past from the other side. Ah! A blood-curdling scream rang out. A student beside Yang Jin screamed as the bare dark body devoured most of his life force and possessed him. The student's face instantly turned savage, and his body mutated. His life force was cut off and death qi filled his entire body. In just 2 or 3 seconds, the student turned into a monster that was neither human nor ghost. Saliva dripped from his mouth. Roar! With a roar, he slapped at another student beside him. Half of the student's body was smashed, and his flesh was torn apart. The formation formed by the 6 of them instantly collapsed, and the pressure on Yang Jin decreased significantly. Xiao Ying and the other 2 students reacted and stabbed the ghostly student to death at the same time. The 4 of them shrank their formation and continued to fight. Yang Jin prepared to use the same trick again. He had already thought it through. Once everyone was dead, he would have no problem escaping to the Flying Feather ship with his strength. No one noticed that Yang Jin was purposely going easy on them. Another student was pierced by a vengeful spirit and instantly turned into a lifeless, gray-white corpse. Just as Yang Jin was going easy on them for the 3rd time, the giant wolf ghost follower that he purposely left out suddenly turned around and clawed at him. Yang Jin felt a pain that came from the depths of his soul. If he wasn't in the qi-gathering realm, he would have lost half his life even if he didn't die. However, even if Yang Jin didn't lose his ability to fight, this kind of pain still caused his fighting strength to decrease. A female black fiend seemed to have noticed Yang Jin's exhaustion. It broke through Yang Jin's spirit qi sword aura and pounced at him. Seeing that he couldn't hold on any longer, Yang Jin cursed inwardly. His gaze swept over to Xiao Ying, who was fighting fiercely with two giant wolf ghost followers. He grabbed Xiao Ying's arm and dragged her in front of him. Yang Jin used Xiao Ying as his shield. Xiao Ying's beautiful face turned pale. She couldn't believe it and shouted, "Brother Yang, what are you doing?" Xiao Ying never dreamed that Yang Jin, whom she respected as a big brother, would betray her and use her as a shield. The ugliest side of the human heart was undoubtedly revealed at this moment. Xiao Ying looked at the female black fiend in despair. "Don't!" Xiao Ying screamed. She helplessly raised her hands to resist the female black fiend. But how could she block it? Whoosh whoosh. There was a sound of breaking air. Then a silver light flashed. A thin figure appeared in front of Xiao Ying. One person and one blade. The female black fiend collapsed and disappeared. Li Daochong. In Xiao Ying's eyes, this figure became abnormally tall, as if it was surrounded by a halo. Li Daochong's blade didn't stop. In the next moment, he appeared elsewhere. Wherever he went, no ghosts were left. It was as if he was devouring ghosts and gods. Li Daochong became more and more ferocious as he killed. He actually managed to block the crazily charging dark ghosts and stabilize the situation. The remaining students retreated to the flying feather ship. The dozen or so dark ghosts that were wreaking havoc inside had already been killed. Bang, bang, bang. On the other side there were continuous explosions. Ding Fugui's hand flashed with light. Talismans shot out like cannonballs. The students were dumbfounded. Tycoon. Ding Fugui didn't care about the cost. He bombarded the dark ghosts indiscriminately. At least 100 dark ghosts were blasted to smithereens. Seeing that the sneak attack of more than 500 dark ghosts had been blocked, the chaotic situation seemed to have stabilized. But suddenly, a ghostly wind blew. The death aura became even thicker. A shadow flashed through the air. It passed through the bodies of several students. Several students were instantly rooted to the spot. Then, they fell straight to the ground. A humanoid figure appeared in the air. Its face was as pale as paper. 2 lines of blood extended from its face to its neck. Kik-Kik, the treacherous ghost, let out a strange sound. With a whoosh, it disappeared. When it reappeared, it was in front of Yang Jin, who was still holding on to Xiao Ying. "Damn it," Yang Jin cursed. With a flick of his hand, he pushed Xiao Ying toward the tongue-pulling ghost. "Yang Jin, you..." Xiao Ying had just opened her mouth when a figure flashed past and caught her midway. Chapter 221. Ding Fugui's Adam's apple trembled as he swallowed his saliva with difficulty. His teeth chattered. He really wanted to run back into the flying feather and order the control room to take off immediately and leave this damned planet. Baleful ghost-level dark ghosts were the nightmare of all cultivators. Without a foundation establishment cultivation, facing a baleful ghost-level dark ghost was basically a dead end. Even the weakest dark ghost could instantly kill cultivators below the late stage of the qi condensation. Ding Fugui used a lot of determination to stop his 2 short legs from moving. He was still firing talismans. The price of a level 5 talisman was not something a normal cultivator could afford. However, for a tycoon like Ding Fugui, carrying a few hundred of them was normal. He only had 1 life. If he lost money, he could earn it again. Ding Fugui had never spared any effort in equipping himself. "Kid, I'm going all out for you. Don't disappoint me." Ding Fugui's back was soaked in sweat. It was not from exhaustion, but from fear. At this moment, Li Daochong landed a few meters away with Xiao Ying in his arms. As soon as they landed, Li Daochong pushed Xiao Ying toward the flying feather. Xiao Ying only felt a gentle force pushing her forward for more than 20 meters. The force was just right to push her to within 5 meters of the flying feather ship. More than 10 veterans and more than 20 students gathered together. They all had serious expressions and held weapons in their hands, ready to attack. Ding Fugui intercepted the large group of dark ghosts. Ning Xiujie and a few other strong students killed the ones that slipped through the net. The group of ghosts could not break through the talisman net. They could only drift around and wait for an opportunity. 30 meters away, Li Daochong faced the tongue-ripping baleful spirit alone. All eyes were on him. Li Daochong's strength was a mystery. Even now, no one knew what his cultivation level was. Killing Wang Xinghu in an instant meant that his strength was above the late stage of the qi condensation. However, his spirit qi was still very weak. He also did not have spirit qi condensation. Spirit qi condensation was the hallmark of a foundation establishment cultivator. Li Daochong's body did not have such a characteristic phenomenon, indicating that he had not entered the foundation establishment stage. Sister Feifei, can Li Daochong defeat the tongue-pulling baleful ghost? Chao Wenxuan asked worriedly. Li Daochong had shown amazing strength time and time again, but when the tongue-pulling ghost appeared, Chao Wenxuan had a feeling that a miracle would not happen again. I don't know. Ling Fei shook her head and replied. Her beautiful eyes were filled with worry. Get on the flying feather ship, there's still a tongue-pulling ghost there, Yang Jin shouted and turned to run. This shout disturbed the hearts of the students. The emotions that the students had just adjusted were thrown into chaos once again. Quite a few people ran into the flying feather ship. The tongue-ripping ghost seemed to be waiting for chaos. When it saw that the people's hearts were scattered again, it turned into a black shadow and flew into the scattered crowd. The flying feather ship's door was only 3 meters wide. There was no order as people scrambled to get on the flying feather ship, blocking the door. Yang Jin saw that he could not get in, so he kicked a student away. The tongue-pulling ghost flew through the student's body and instantly turned him into a gray corpse. Whoosh! The tongue-pulling ghost's shadow flashed through the crowd. The students fell down one after another. Damn it, is that brat trying to kill us? Ning Xiujie cursed. She rushed forward and smashed the tongue-pulling ghost with her rod. Zhao Yaru followed closely behind. 2 other students in the middle stage of the qi gathering also rushed over. Ning Xiujie's rod struck down. The tongue-pulling ghost swung its arm. Dang bang, Ning Xiujie flew back and landed more than 10 meters away. Zhao Yaru stabbed out at almost the same time. The tongue-pulling ghost's terrifying face revealed a sinister smile. It flashed and disappeared. The next moment, it appeared beside Zhao Yaru and was about to go through her body. Another student arrived just in time. He held a broadsword in his hand and slashed at the tongue-pulling ghost's back. The tongue-pulling ghost didn't dare to be careless. It gave up on going through Zhao Yaru's body and turned around to attack with its claw. Death Qi and Spirit Qi collided violently. Boom! The student was sent flying. Another student rushed forward and was also easily sent flying by the tongue-pulling ghost. In the blink of an eye, the 4 students led by Ning Xiujie were sent flying one by one. The tongue-pulling ghost was far stronger than expected. Ning Xiujie was in the late stage of the qi gathering. Zhao Yaru and the other 2 students were in the middle stage of the qi gathering. The 4 of them surrounded the tongue-pulling ghost, but they couldn't stop it. However, the 4 of them were able to connect quickly with each other, barely managing to block the tongue-pulling malicious ghost. But in less than half a minute, danger surrounded them. The ebony rod in Ning Xiujie's hand broke into 2. It looked like she couldn't hold on any longer. Seeing that the situation was about to get out of control, Ding Fugue had an idea and shouted, "You bastards, why are you running? The tongue-ripping ghost is right in front of you, and you're not killing it? Whoever kills it will get the direct card. Have you King forgotten why you're here?" Ding Fugue's roar exploded with all the spirit qi in his body. His voice shook the sky and pierced the students' eardrums. Some of the stronger students were stunned for a moment before they reacted. The mentality of following the crowd caused their brains to short-circuit. In addition, the huge amount of death qi on the tongue-pulling ghost intimidated people. For a moment, the students were like headless flies flying around. After hearing Ding Fugue's words, several of the students were shocked and immediately picked up their weapons. Seeing that it was effective, Ding Fugui shouted again, "Whoever F*King runs again will be punished for desertion. Kill them on the spot." If they ran, they would die. If they didn't run, they would still die. But if they didn't run, at least they had a chance. With so many people besieging the tongue-pulling ghost, it wasn't impossible. If they killed the tongue-pulling ghost, not only could they save their lives, they could also get the direct card. Without any hesitation, 7 or 8 students picked up their weapons and joined the battle against Ning Xiujie's group of 4. More than 10 Qi condensation cultivators besieged the tongue-pulling ghost. The ghost's shadow moved up and down as it rampaged, but it no longer had the overwhelming advantage it had before. It was surrounded by sword after sword, imbued with spirit Qi. On the other side, Li Daochong was still in a standoff with another tongue-pulling ghost. Li Daochong was holding the Tsang ink. He was completely focused, and no matter what was happening behind him, it was as if he didn't hear it. At the moment, he couldn't care less. The death Qi on the tongue-pulling ghost was unprecedentedly strong. This was the strongest dark ghost Li Daochong had encountered so far. The red ghost remnant that he had absorbed during the arena fight was actually dead. Li Daochong had just picked up a big bargain. If he really faced the red ghost in its full state, Li Daochong could only run. Back when he was only at the 2nd level of Qi refinement, he had almost been defeated by a black wraith binding spirit. The hot-blooded upgrader was not without restrictions. Li Daochong could only absorb dark ghosts weaker than himself. If the dark ghost was stronger than Li Daochong, absorbing it would be risky, and there was even a chance of a backlash. Of course, Li Daochong could choose to kill it. No matter how strong the dark ghost was, as long as Li Daochong had a way to kill it. Even if it was in existence on the level of a Grand Wizard, the hot-blooded upgrader could completely absorb a Grand Wizard without a soul. The tongue-pulling ghost's black eyes glowed dark red. The human in front of it clearly wasn't very strong, but it felt as if it had encountered a high-level dark ghost. The tongue-pulling ghost let out a strange, ear-piercing cry as it finally moved. Its ghostly body howled as it charged, and a vast amount of death Qi condensed and compressed toward Li Daochong. Chapter 222. The tongue-pulling malicious ghost's body transformed into a black curtain that enveloped the world. Li Daochong's spirit Qi exploded out and focused on the Tsang ink. There was a flash of light. The star slashing slash. Clang. In the blink of an eye, the light flashed past. The tongue-pulling malicious ghost's terrifying face was shocked. Its open body suddenly contracted, condensing into a ball of black flame. Bang! The saber energy and the black flame collided, canceling each other out. A piece of the tongue-pulling malicious ghost's body was cut off, and Li Daochong hastily retreated 10 some step. Li Daochong steadied himself, surprise in his eyes. Ever since he had successfully cultivated the 9-split saber technique, he had never failed. Li Daochong had used all his strength in this attack, not holding back at all. Yet he had failed to injure the tongue-pulling malicious ghost, and had only managed to cut off a sliver of its body. The effect of the wound had been completely cancelled out by the death Qi. Li Daochong was shocked, but his movements did not pause. He suddenly stomped on the ground, and with a boom, the ground exploded as he shot forward like an arrow. He was so fast that he was almost flying. Li Daochong had long ago mastered the void flying steps and could walk through the air for short distances. Li Daochong was shocked, but the tongue-pulling malicious ghost was even more shocked. This human was different from anyone it had encountered before. The tongue-pulling malicious ghost could not sense any fear from this human. Humans had an innate fear of underworld ghosts. Even a powerful human would feel some sort of fear when facing an underworld ghost. Perhaps it was not fear, but it was definitely discomfort. This was similar to how a timid girl would be afraid of a bug. It was a fear that came from the bones. But not only was this not the case, this human seemed very excited. An indiscernible confusion flashed through the tongue-pulling malicious ghost's black eye socket. But there was no time for it to be confused, because this human was already charging over, like a hungry tiger that had seen a delicious deer. The tongue-pulling malicious ghost's 2 ghostly claws were condensed from death chi. They seemed solid, like withered wood, but they were covered in a black halo. Clang! Li Daocheng's blade slashed down, and the tongue-pulling evil spirit's ghost claw blocked it. The 2 sides clashed fiercely, causing a crisp sound to erupt. It was like the sound of metal weapons colliding. One man and one ghost, moving up and down, suddenly appearing here and there, sometimes completely disappearing. When they reappeared, they were already dozens of meters away, and in the blink of an eye, they were only a few meters away. The surviving students around the flying feather ship were all dumbfounded. How old was Li Daocheng? How could he fight a tongue-pulling baleful spirit to this extent? Foundation-building cultivators were only SOSO, but Li Daocheng hadn't even built his foundation yet. This guy, how on earth does he cultivate? A student stuttered. Ling Fei's mouth was wide open, and her almond-shaped eyes trembled slightly. Why was this guy so strong? She had never heard of such a person on planet Crimson Sun before. In just one day, Ling Fei was shocked by Li Daocheng's strength again and again. This guy was too monstrous, but how could such a prodigy be unknown on planet Crimson Sun? No, not just planet Crimson Sun, but even in the entire 4-ring starfield, he was definitely one of the top prodigies. Even the prodigies on planet Crimson Sun couldn't reach Li Daocheng's level, so why would he participate in the direct examination? This didn't make sense. Ling Fei was puzzled, but she wasn't interested in the answer. She knew that all the students who participated in the direct examination had their own difficulties, and she was sure that Li Daocheng had it too. Ling Fei looked at the figure that flashed with the malicious ghost. The scene of Li Daocheng returning to save her the day before flashed through her mind, and her heart skipped a beat. Chao Wenxuan nervously clenched her small hands, but her heart had already calmed down. She realized that as long as Li Daocheng was here, danger wouldn't really come. Xiao Ying stood behind the students in a daze, admiration flowing through her eyes. This strange young man who had appeared out of nowhere was actually this powerful, far surpassing her imagination. She had thought that he was just a little kid in the qi condensation realm. When she thought about how Yang Jin had betrayed her, Xiao Ying clenched her teeth in anger. She blamed herself for being blind and actually worshipping that guy. Compared to Li Daocheng, Yang Jin was just a pile of shit. No, he was even worse than shit. I want to learn saber techniques. Xiao Ying suddenly had this thought. The more she looked at the saber in Li Daocheng's hand, the more she liked it. Ding Fugue was still releasing talismans, but the frequency had decreased. He would only attack when a nether ghost tried to approach. Even a nouveau riche would not be able to endure such a release. In just a few minutes, Ding Fugue had released more than 300 level 5 talismans. Tens of millions were burned just like that. Ding Fugue didn't feel the slightest bit of heartache. As he watched Li Daocheng fight the malicious ghosts, his small eyes shone. Amazing, amazing! Ding Fugue danced with joy in his heart, as if he had discovered a mountain of gold. He was overjoyed. On Ning Xiujie's side, more than 10 qi condensation students were attacking a tongue-ripping malicious ghost together. Only then were they able to hold on, and from time to time, they would be surrounded by danger. Li Daocheng was fighting the tongue-ripping malicious ghost alone without being at a disadvantage. How many people of his age in the Federation's 4th ring could do this? One could count them on one hand. However, Li Daocheng was not as relaxed as he looked. He had already displayed his full strength, and a faint halo of spirit qi flowed around his body. If not for the fact that he had reached the late stage of qi condensation, Li Daocheng might not have been able to hold on in front of the tongue-ripping malicious ghost. Human, you are very strong, so your smell is very fragrant. If I devour you, I can advance to become a soul-devouring ghost. Kiki, the tongue-ripping malicious ghost's ghostly claws transformed into countless afterimages that swiped at Li Daochong like shooting stars. It could speak? Li Daochong was surprised. This was the first time he had heard a dark ghost speak, and its voice was strange and somewhat hollow. Human, you are the first person since I evolved into a tongue-ripping malicious ghost to make me use this move. You should be happy, Kiki. A savage smile appeared on the tongue-ripping malicious ghost's terrifying face, and then it opened its mouth and spat out a ball of black chi. The black chi quickly gathered together, condensing into a black cloud. Skull Cloud Cave. Li Daochong's eyes focused. What the hell? Hades ghost art. Li Daochong was alarmed, and then he realized that only high-level Hades ghosts could use it. Li Daochong's pupils constricted, and he had a bad feeling. He shouted, 9 Split Saber Art's 6th layer, Sun-Splitting Slash. At almost the same time, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled within the black cloud, and a bolt of lightning came crashing down. Kaboom! The black lightning was like a heavenly tribulation. Li Daochong's saber light collided with the lightning in the air. Boom! It was like a missile had exploded. Li Daochong felt his chi and blood churn, and his skin felt like it was on fire. A black electric current drilled into his body. Li Daochong flew back 10-some meters, crashing into a building. Boom! The entire building collapsed. This scene caused Ding Fuguei and the students' hearts to shrink, and the thought that they were done for instantly flooded their minds. This tongue-pulling baleful ghost actually knew ghost art. It had to be known that tongue-pulling baleful ghosts were below average among baleful ghosts, and most of them did not know ghost art. Only red shadow baleful ghosts would know. Ning Xiujie's group of students, who were attacking the other tongue-pulling baleful ghost, were all shocked, and the weapons in their hands were unsteady. If this tongue-pulling baleful ghost also knew ghost art, the dozen or so people would be instantly killed. Li Daochong will be fine. Ling Fei clenched her fists tightly, and looked nervously in the direction of the collapsed building. Ling Fei was not the only one who thought so. Everyone thought so. Li Daochong was so strong, how could he die in one hit? 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds. There was no movement in the ruins. Ding Fuguei's fat face sank. It's over. Don't tell me he's really dead. After Ning Xiujie's strike, she retreated to the side and looked at the black cloud in the sky. She exclaimed, That's the black underworld lightning summoned from the Hades. Ding Fuguei's nose was running. Nanny? Black underworld lightning? It's over. It's really over. Even Foundation establishment cultivators did not dare to touch the black underworld lightning. If they were touched even a little, they would be instantly annihilated. Even if their cultivation level was high, they would only be able to delay the time of annihilation. Chapter 224. The lively Li Daochong appeared out of nowhere. Big brother, you're not dead. Where did you go? Ding Fuguei wailed miserably. I'm thinking. Li Daochong, who was shooting out blue lightning, replied. Thinking? Damn, you have time to think? Don't you know that your little brother is about to piss his pants? Fine, you're my big brother. Do whatever you want. Ding Fuguei was dumbfounded. Li Daochong's body crackled as the blue lightning grew denser. He had absorbed too much of the black underworld lightning. Li Daochong had to spit it out, compressing the spirit chi in his body. Hum. Li Daochong let out a soft cry. Bang bang? You jiu jiu jing? Hum? Lu du? You jiu jiu? Should be slaughtered boom. The spirit chi in Li Daochong's body carried the spirit sun lightning and exploded as if it was self-destructing. Wherever the blue lightning passed, the nether ghosts were instantly annihilated. The remaining nether ghosts vanished into nothingness as if they had never existed. The tongue-pulling ghost that Ning Xiujie and the others were attacking was also struck by a bolt of spirit yang lightning. Its body became unstable and transparent. However, Li Daochong's lightning web, under the control of his telekinesis, locked onto the death chi. The lightning seemed to spread indiscriminately, but in reality, it only struck the nether ghost. Ning Xiujie saw that the tongue-pulling ghost was weak and immediately roared, "Attack together and destroy it." The other students were invigorated, and their previous weakness disappeared. Gritting their teeth, they all used their trump cards, unleashing their most powerful attacks on the tongue-pulling ghost. On the other side, Li Daochong felt much better after releasing the lightning. The swelling in his body had disappeared. After killing several hundred nether ghosts, Li Daochong's spirit chi had reached a new level. Although he still hadn't leveled up, he felt that he wasn't far from peak chi condensation. Li Daochong raised his head to look at the spirit on the black cloud. He extended his hand, and the Tsang ink appeared in his hand. A spark of electricity flowed from Li Daochong's hand to the blade. After Tsang ink added the spirit sun lightning, the ink-green blade buzzed as if it had a mind of its own and could not wait to devour the death chi. The terrifying face of the tongue-pulling ghost twisted. The black cloud rolled and shrank into a black sphere that was only 2 meters in diameter. Lightning flashed and thunder roared inside, and it was extremely unstable. "Human, your human soul will become the most delicious dish today. Die." The tongue-ripping specter's low and hoarse voice came from the sky. Then, the black sphere in the void fell towards Li Daochong like a meteor. Li Daochong licked his lips. Holding the Tsang ink horizontally, he squatted down abruptly and shot upwards like a bullet. 9 Split Saber Technique, 7th Stage, Split Void. A huge shadow of a blade appeared on the Tsang ink. It was 10 meters long and 1 meter wide, showing the illusion of a huge Tsang ink. The black sphere was cut in half by the blade and disappeared with a pop. The tongue-pulling ghost's terrifying face instantly revealed a look of horror. Yes, this ghost was frightened. "Kiki ah!" The tongue-pulling ghost let out a terrifying scream. It wanted to escape, but it could not move. The void seemed to have been split, and it could not tell where was where. It was as if up, down, left, and right did not exist. Zing! A light flashed past, and the tongue-pulling ghost was cut in half. Then, crackling lightning flashed across the ghost body. Bang, bang, bang! The ghost body shattered, and every piece of the ghost body exploded. Beep! Killed a complete tongue-pulling ghost. Soul power gained. Host leveled up to level 15. The notification sounded. The spirit root in Li Daochong's body quickly spiraled and spread to every corner of his body. A small placenta extended from the end of the spirit root in his dantian. Most of the spirit chi gathered there, forming a spirit chi vortex. Peak of the chi gathering stage. Li Daochong sheathed his blade. It was finally over. Exhaustion attacked him, and his eyelids were fighting. The attack just now had used up all his energy. Li Daochong forced himself to be alert and walked towards the flying feather ship. At this time, there were only 3 people who could still stand. The tongue-pulling ghost that Ning Xiujie and the others had surrounded was also killed. However, before it died, it exploded with a shocking amount of death chi. It struggled with all its might and actually killed 5 students instantly. The others were also injured. Other than Ding Fugue and Xiaoying, the only one who could still stand was Ning Xiujie. Li Daochong urgently needed to rest. He looked at Ding Fugue and said, "Take those who are alive. Let's leave this place first." "Okay." Ding Fugue answered and quickly called for the non-combatants on the flying feather ship to come down and help the injured. There were less than 10 people alive, and they quickly boarded the flying feather ship. Ding Fugue could see that Li Daochong had expended a lot of energy. He was smart and directly brought Li Daochong to Wang Xinghu's resting room. Although it was called a resting room, it actually had everything. Moreover, it was not cheap. There were 4 rooms, and each room had its own purpose. There was a treatment room, a resting room, a training room, and a recreation room. There were almost all kinds of treatment facilities in the treatment room. There were all kinds of healing spirit liquids and spirit herbs. Li Daochong naturally did not stand on ceremony. He used everything that he could use. Then, he lay comfortably in the spirit liquid tank and fell into a deep sleep. While Li Daochong was sleeping, the flying feather ship only flew a few hundred kilometers into a mountain range. It found a hidden place to land. Ding Fugue wanted to leave too, but after the flying feather ship was attacked by the black hell lightning, its interior was damaged. The power room was affected by the lightning, and the spirit engine malfunctioned. It could not fly far at all. The logistics and maintenance staff needed 2 days to fix it. Therefore, they could only leave Puyin City first and find a hidden place to rest. While Li Daochong was sleeping, Ding Fugue personally guarded him. He did not leave his side at all. He also arranged for the personnel to be transferred to the room next to Li Daochong. As long as they were still on planet tongue pulling, Ding Fugue did not dare to be careless. He did not know if there were other tongue-pulling malicious ghosts. Li Daochong was the biggest guarantee that the remaining people could leave alive. Naturally, he had to guard him personally. Ding Fugue contacted the other teams while he was resting. There were more than 1,500 people participating in the direct test this time. They were split into 5 teams, each with about 300 people. The team that Ding Fugue was in charge of was located in Puyin City. The other 4 teams also entered the densely populated big cities on planet tongue pulling. All 5 teams had killed 2 tongue-pulling malicious ghosts. However, they all suffered heavy casualties. However, compared to Ding Fugue's team, their situation was still much better. The other teams had at least 40 people left. Some had more than 100 people left. On Ding Fugue's side, there were only 17 people left alive. Including Li Daochong, there were only 3 people who could move. They were Xiao Ying, Ning Xiujie, and Li Daochong. Most of the others were unconscious. The medical staff on the Flying Feather could not do anything about the residual black hell lightning in their bodies. During the treatment process, 2 of the medicine refiners were injured because they did not perform the treatment properly. Ding Fugue waited for a day, but Li Daochong still did not show any signs of waking up. This made him feel uneasy. Ding Fugue kept feeling that something was wrong. The temperature on the Flying Feather did not rise. It gave off a gloomy feeling. However, he could not find the reason. He used his Dharma treasure to scan the Flying Feather several times, but it did not show any signs of death. Ding Fugue was wondering if he should go into the treatment room to wake Li Daochong up first when chaos broke out in the only treatment room on the Flying Feather. Captain, come quickly. Yang Jin went crazy when he woke up and killed Dr. Chun. Urgent calls came from the watch. Ding Fugue hurried to the treatment room and saw Yang Jin's eyes were red. There was a layer of black scales on his body. Ning Xiujie was also healing. There were almost no combatants on the Flying Feather. Those who were not combatants were no match for Yang Jin. A few medicine refiners were lying in a pool of blood. Xiao Ying was injured. Yang Jin grabbed a nurse's neck and asked with a ferocious expression, "Where is Li Daochong?" Ding Fugue was very anxious. No one was Yang Jin's match. After being possessed by the dark hell ghost, he was only stronger than his original body. The nurse's neck was about to be deformed. Her face was red and she could only breathe out. Ding Fugue hurriedly said, "Let her go. I will tell you where he is." Yang Jin turned to look at Ding Fugue and loosened his grip. Dong! The nurse fell to the ground. Speak! Ding Fugue's mind raced. He was definitely not Yang Jin's match. He couldn't use the spirit shock dart either. Otherwise, the entire Flying Feather would be blown up. What should I do? Ding Fugue's forehead was covered in cold sweat. Xiao Ying saw that Yang Jin was distracted and stabbed him from behind. Clang! The longsword hit Yang Jin's back. However, Yang Jin's body was as hard as steel after ghosting. The sword felt like it had hit a steel plate. Yang Jin didn't even look at Xiao Ying. He swung his hand and slapped her. Xiao Ying flew backward and slammed into the wall. She bounced back and landed at Yang Jin's feet. Then, he stepped on Xiao Ying's chest. Damn fatty, you're not going to talk? Then I will have to kill everyone and search room by room. Yang Jin sneered. You're looking for me? A calm voice came from the door of the treatment room. Chapter 225. What possessed Yang Jin was a wraith. Among the nether ghosts, wraith was not a very powerful one. However, after being possessed by a vengeful spirit, a person's resentment would be completely stimulated. Their resentment would be infinitely magnified, and their consciousness would not be lost. They would only become deranged. When Yang Jin was possessed, his mind was filled with worry that Li Daochong would take revenge on him. Previously, he had spoken ill of Li Daochong, but he did not expect Li Daochong to be so powerful. He was not someone he could provoke. After Yang Jin woke up, all of his resentment was focused on Li Daochong. He knew that he was not Li Daochong's match. Therefore, Yang Jin wanted to kill Li Daochong while he was asleep. Only then could he protect himself. However, Li Daochong did not take this matter to heart. Li Daochong was too lazy to care about this kind of thing. However, Li Daochong's calm eyes flashed with killing intent. If this guy wanted to kill him, that was a different matter. The death aura that Yang Jin emitted also interested Li Daochong. After waking up, it would be good to have a side dish. When Yang Jin saw Li Daochong, all of his hair stood on end. He stepped on Xiao Ying's foot and exerted more force. Pooh! Xiao Ying's pretty face paled and she spat out a mouthful of blood. Li Daochong's expression changed. He said in a low voice, "Let her go." Yang Jin smiled sinisterly. "What? Do you feel sorry for her? If you don't want her to die, then kill yourself. Otherwise, I will stomp her into a meat patty." Ha! Xiao Ying looked at Yang Jin in despair. In just a day, Yang Jin not only used her as a shield, but also wanted to kill her. The big brother that she once had in her heart had collapsed. Li Daochong said unhurriedly, "I don't even know her. Don't you think it's funny that you're using her to threaten me?" Yang Jin's ghostly face, which had turned green and gray, revealed a look of disapproval, as if saying, "Do you think I'll believe you if you say that? If you don't know her, then why did you save her? Hee, we're all men, so why are you pretending? Did you take a fancy to this lass? Actually, I'm also very tempted. Her skin is soft and tender, and she's petite and exquisite. Oh right, you've hugged her waist before. Not bad, right? Let her go, and I'll leave your corpse intact." Li Daochong was too lazy to talk nonsense. As for what Yang Jin said, he pretended not to hear it. Leave my corpse intact? The pair of blood-red eyes on Yang Jin's terrifying face revealed a strange look. He looked at Li Daochong as if he was looking at an idiot. He reached out his hand, grabbed Xiao Ying from the ground, and strangled her. "With this shield, what can you do to me? Don't worry about me. Just kill him." Xiao Ying clenched her teeth and said resolutely, "Pa." Yang Jin slapped Xiao Ying hard on the head and said, "Shut up, Poochie." As soon as his voice fell, the Tsang ink knife pierced through Yang Jin's back and came out of his mouth. Yang Jin stared at Li Daochong with his blood-red eyes in disbelief. How could it be? Li Daochong's right index finger and middle finger together gently flicked, and the Tsang ink knife cut Yang Jin's head in half like cutting tofu. His brain juice burst out. Spiritual sense treasure control. Li Daochong was not idle when he was asleep. His powerful telekinesis allowed him to continue practicing in his dreams. At the peak of the Qi-gathering realm, his telekinesis was even more powerful. After leveling up, the 8th stage of the 9 cracks saber technique was automatically generated. The 8th stage was the Imperial Saber attack. Its power was not as strong as the previous stages, but it could kill people invisibly, and the attack range and area were greatly increased. Ding Fugue stared at Li Daochong, dumbfounded. What was this kid's cultivation level? When did Li Daochong use the flying knife? He did not see it at all. Not to mention that Yang Jin was only possessed by a resentful spirit. Even if he was a tongue-pulling evil spirit, Li Daochong could kill him in a second. Therefore, when Yang Jin held Xiaoying hostage, Li Daochong was not worried at all. He had at least 3 ways to kill Yang Jin in a second, and he would not have time to kill him. Xiaoying was seriously injured and fell to the ground. At this time, her eyes were filled with emotion. Li Daochong walked to Xiaoying's side and squatted down. He stretched out his hand to feel her pulse. After a few seconds, his expression softened. This girl only suffered serious external injuries. As long as she soaked in the healing liquid for a period of time, she would recover. There was no death aura in her body. When Li Daochong stood up, Xiaoying said with difficulty, "Thank you." "You're welcome. Even if he didn't kidnap you, I would have killed him." After saying this, Li Daochong picked up Xiaoying and placed her in the spirit liquid vat. Li Daochong's words caused a trace of disappointment to appear in Xiaoying's eyes, but it was fleeting. She hesitated for a moment before saying, "Can I be your disciple?" Li Daochong looked at Xiaoying in surprise. "You want to be my disciple?" Xiaoying sat in the spirit liquid vat and nodded. "Can I?" Li Daochong shook his head. "No." Xiaoying pursed her lips and asked, "Why?" Li Daochong thought for a moment before saying, "I don't even have enough time to cultivate. How can I have time to teach a disciple? You should continue with your studies. If you don't die in the direct examination this time, you'll at least be able to get a quasi-direct card. You're now qualified to take the joint examination of 100 schools. There's no need to be my disciple." Xiaoying continued, "I can't pass the joint examination. Take me as your disciple and let me follow you. Even if you want me to work like a horse, I can do a lot of things." Li Daochong frowned slightly. "Don't worry about your injuries." With that, he turned and left. After Li Daochong left, Ding Fugue, who was standing to the side, said, "Girl, Li Daochong is extraordinarily talented. He has such remarkable abilities at such a young age. It won't be long before the entire Xinhua Federation will be shocked. This kind of genius isn't easy to get close to. You should give up on the idea of being his disciple." Xiaoying didn't refute, but a stubborn expression appeared on her pretty face. Li Daochong had shocked her too much. Even the lecturers at her school were no match for Li Daochong. Given her birth and talent, it would be very difficult for her to advance in cultivation. The direct test this time allowed Xiaoying to clearly understand just how huge the gap between her and a genius was. It was a chasm that could not be crossed. However, Xiaoying wasn't willing to become an ordinary person. She wanted to become a cultivator who traveled the world, not a mediocre person who got married, had children, and lived the rest of her life. Xiaoying's hand, which was hanging in the spirit liquid vat, slowly clenched. Li Daochong's figure became more concrete in her heart. This person would be the turning point in her life. After thinking about it, Xiaoying closed her eyes. The spirit energy in her body surged, and the healing spirit liquid in the spirit liquid vat was absorbed into her body bit by bit. After saying those words to Xiaoying, Ding Fugue immediately left the infirmary and eagerly followed Li Daochong. Seeing that Ding Fugue had followed him, Li Daochong asked faintly, "Where are the other injured people?" "In the hall." Ding Fugue had originally wanted to talk to Li Daochong about this matter, and see if he had a way to remove the remnants of the black abyss lightning in the unconscious students' bodies. Thus, he immediately answered when he heard Li Daochong ask. As soon as Ding Fugue finished speaking, Li Daochong's figure flashed and disappeared. The next moment, he appeared in the hall. Li Daochong saw that Ling Fei's eyes were tightly shut and her expression was pained. He stepped forward and grabbed her wrist. After checking, Li Daochong's face tightened. The remnants of the black abyss lightning in Ling Fei's body had already penetrated deep into her spirit meridian. If she didn't receive treatment soon, her life would be in danger. Immediately, a cyclone rose around Li Daochong. The spirit energy in his body rumbled out, and powerful spirit energy was continuously injected into Ling Fei's body. Li? Jiujie? Bai pu ba miao li de fu? Bai mei lian ling jian luo? Lui. A few minutes later, Ling Fei slowly opened her eyes. When she saw Li Daochong, her pair of beautiful almond-shaped eyes blinked. She suddenly sat up and hugged Li Daochong. Big brother Li, you're not dead. That's great. The sudden hug made Li Daochong unable to react for a moment. He only felt that his chest was filled with two soft lumps. Chapter 226. A day later, a large military shuttle appeared in the skies above Tongue Extraction Planet. The entire shuttle was like a fully armed porcupine, and there were as many as 30 talisman cannons. What were talisman cannons? Yes, they were cannons that fired talismans. Talismans above level 7 were extremely powerful, and those below the early stage of the Qi condensation realm would be drained of their spiritual energy. One shot would cause them to become paralyzed. The talisman cannons fired talismans, and the spiritual energy came from spirit stones. This military shuttle was a C-grade combat shuttle, more than 200 meters long and 30 meters wide. Although it was called a shuttle, its overall shape was more like a flatboat. The combat level of this combat shuttle wasn't high, but it commanded combat shuttles and had a very high administrative level. To be able to become the captain of such a shuttle meant that one's position in the military was not low, at least a senior colonel. Qin Zhan stood by the window and looked down at the gray world below, a hint of melancholy on his face. This used to be his home. But now it had become hell on earth. Planet Puyun no longer existed, leaving behind only Tongue Extraction Planet, which had been invaded by Dark Ghost. Qin Zhan was originally stationed in the northwest part of the Federation. The situation there was tense, and Dark Ghost had launched frequent attacks recently. The front lines were a bit tight, and as one of the commanders, Qin Zhan couldn't leave. But when Qin Zhan heard that the direct test had been arranged to be held in his home, he personally requested to be one of the examiners. Qin Zhan had military merits, so his request naturally wouldn't be rejected. He was then appointed as the final examiner of the direct test. Qin Zhan should have arrived 2 days ago, but he was worried about the front lines. When he left the northwest part of the Nine-Ring starfield, he took a detour and ambushed a transit station in the Hades with a dozen or so combat shuttles. After successfully destroying it, Qin Zhan finally felt at ease and headed to his former home planet Puyun. After the transit station was destroyed, Qin Zhan predicted that the Hades wouldn't be able to launch any major attacks for at least half a month. Qin Zhan could make good use of this period of time. Besides relaxing for himself, he could also see if there were any outstanding young people emerging in the Federation recently. Only by constantly nurturing new talents could the front line be maintained. Once there were no successors, the front line would be destroyed. The Federation's front line would be compressed to the 7-ring starfield in a few years, and the 8 and 9-ring starfields would completely fall. In the past 10 years, the number of talents in the Federation had withered, and the speed at which they were nurturing was barely keeping up with the consumption at the front line. However, due to the frequent movements of the Hades, the situation at the front line had become more and more tense. What the army of cultivators lacked was not soldiers. Soldiers above the 7th level of the refinement stage could become excellent soldiers in less than 3 months after receiving special military training and being given some special elixirs and liquids as well as military magical weapons. The Federation had a large population, and almost everyone knew some cultivation technique. There was no shortage of soldiers. What they lacked were commander-type generals and cultivators with high cultivation. This year, the Federation did not fully count the number of cultivators who had entered the Jin Dan stage by the age of 30. There were only about 3,000 of them, which was the lowest number in history. Qin Zhan was deeply worried about this. If this continued, The front line really wouldn't be able to hold on. Mr. Qin, are you not used to being away from the front line? Do you want me to help you relax your muscles and bones? A woman with a hot figure, dressed in Tang Dynasty clothing from some ancient immortal planet, walked in from the door and looked at Qin Zhan's back with a smile as she teased him. Qin Zhan looked out the window, and a trace of helplessness appeared on his originally calm face. Couldn't this woman leave him alone for a while? What are you doing here instead of watching the direct test videos? Qin Zhan was still looking out the window at his hometown. Of course I'm here to beat you up, ha ha ha. The woman smiled charmingly and let out a bell-like laughter. As soon as the laughter came, Qin Zhan's eyes revealed a vigilant look. Spiritual light flowed in his hand, and the aura around his body instantly changed. Yu Yan, don't mess around. This is outer space. The battle shuttle will be pierced through. Qin Zhan was annoyed, but he had no choice but to remind her. The only response he got was the sound of something breaking through the air. Yu Yan turned into a ray of light and flashed over. The dagger in her hand was about a few inches long, and it directly stabbed towards the back of Qin Zhan's neck. Qin Zhan didn't dare to dodge. Otherwise, this woman wouldn't be able to hold back and would definitely pierce through the window of the battle shuttle. Qin Zhan turned around and struck out with his palm. At the same time, a cyclone appeared in his other hand to block the incoming dagger. Pa dang ka bang. In the blink of an eye, the two of them exchanged more than 10 moves. In the end, Yu Yan turned over and jumped back. Her beautiful face revealed a satisfied expression. Official Qin, did I make any progress? Qin Zhan looked at Yu Yan with shame. This woman was crazy. Just now, she even used that move. If he hadn't recently learned the profound meaning of the 6 divine palms, he might have been stabbed by this woman. Yu Yan was ruthless and didn't give him any face. He didn't know if she really wanted to compare notes with him, or if she wanted to kill him. More than 10 days ago, Yu Yan, as the other examiner, met with Qin Zhan. As soon as they met, this woman attacked him without saying anything. Qin Zhan was caught off guard and his wrist was injured. Shocked and angry, Qin Zhan used his true power and hit Yu Yan's shoulder, causing the latter's shoulder to be dislocated. After that, the first thing Yu Yan did when she saw Qin Zhan was to attack him. In Qin Zhan's eyes, this woman was even more difficult to deal with than the rumors. Yu Yan's cultivation was at the early stage of Jindan, while Qin Zhan was at the middle stage of Jindan. If not, Qin Zhan would have been played to death by this woman. Qin Zhan turned a deaf ear to Yu Yan's question. He only said, "Are you done? If you're done, let's go." Yu Yan covered her mouth and laughed. "You're the only one allowed to look up at the starry sky. Can't I?" She looked like she wasn't going to leave and walked to another window. Qin Zhan kept his mouth shut. He only wanted to look at the starry sky by himself. He didn't want to look at it with another person around, so he turned around and left. Everyone is waiting. 4 transport ships have already arrived. Big Official Qin, why don't you hurry up and take a look at the footage of the test? Yu Yan reminded him as she rolled her eyes at the departing Qin Zhan. You're also an examiner. Why don't you go? Qin Zhan stopped in his tracks and frowned slightly. I want to, but it's a pity that the students were so excited when they heard that Big Official Qin was the examiner. You're so famous in the Cultivation Academy that all the primary school students idolize you. A nobody like me won't join in the fun, Yu Yan said with a hint of jealousy. She was really annoyed that the students didn't like her. She had the same military rank as Qin Zhan and there wasn't much difference in strength between them. She was the vanguard on the front line and did the most dangerous and dirty work, while Qin Zhan was the commander. Because Qin Zhan had commanded well in several key battles, the Cultivation Army had won complete victories. He had become the main target of the military's propaganda and had established a glorious image among the young people. It was one thing that no one recognized Yu Yan when she went to the hall just now, but several students actually mistook her for a military receptionist and took liberties with her. If it weren't for the presence of the two old generals, she definitely would have gone berserk on the spot and crippled those students. The two old generals were both civil servants in the military. One was an apothecary and the other was a weaponsmith. They were here as examiners to conduct the examination. When Qin Zhan arrived at the hall, more than 200 students were already in place. They were all whispering to each other and looking a little excited. No matter what, being able to survive the direct test was already a victory. Even if they couldn't get a direct card, they would still be fancied by the military and some cultivation colleges. Qin Zhan didn't stay in the hall and went straight to the side door. Inside was a screening room where dozens of people were sitting and watching the video of the direct test. 1/3 of these people were from the military, while the other 1/3 were advanced cultivation college recruiters from the 4th Ring Star Zone. The colleges that could come here were all ranked in the top 100. Qin Zhan was bored to death and sat in the last row. Although he was the examiner, there were so many people here that he didn't need to go through them one by one. There were more than 20 screens on the huge spirit screen, playing everything that had happened in the 5 test areas in the past 3 days. Of course, the screens had already been screened once. What was playing now was the highlights. The insignificant ones had already been filtered by the spirit brain and manually removed. The rest were the highlights of the direct test. After Qin Zhan sat down, he didn't look at the screen. He asked an assistant examiner, who had been watching for a long time, "How did Ning Xiujie, Jiang Yuanfeng, and Hua Qingqing do?" The assistant examiner didn't seem to hear him. He stared at the screen with his mouth wide open and murmured, "Liar, liar." Puzzled, Qin Zhan turned to look at the screen and saw that the largest screen in the center was showing a student fighting fiercely with a malicious spirit. The student's face couldn't be seen clearly. He was wearing a green training uniform, and his body was covered in sparks of electricity. He was holding a long, straight-back saber in his hand, which was shaped very much like a Zamedeo. When he swung the saber, a giant phantom appeared and directly destroyed the dark clouds released by the malicious spirit. With one blow, the malicious spirit was reduced to ashes. "Which squadron is he from? Bring him to me." Qin Zhan abruptly stood up from his seat. The assistant's face darkened and he didn't reply. Qin Zhan said unhappily, "Didn't you hear what I said?" Chapter 227. Qin Zhan narrowed his eyes. The 5th Squadron? The examiner is Wang Xinghu's squadron? Wang Xinghu committed irregularities during the test and even killed a student. Didn't they say that he was executed on the spot? The assistant nodded. Yes, the acting captain, Ding Fugue, has sent the evidence of Wang Xinghu's crimes and indeed said that Wang Xinghu is dead. Qin Zhan continued to ask, "He didn't say how he died?" The assistant replied, "He only said that Wang Xinghu wanted to kill a student, but was killed by the student instead." Qin Zhan was shocked. Wang Xinghu was in the late stage of the Qi gathering and had been in the army for several years. He had been on the battlefield for a long time, and even an ordinary foundation establishment cultivator might not be able to do anything to him. How could he be killed by a student? The assistant was puzzled. According to the information he had, the strongest student who participated in the direct test was only in the late stage of the Qi gathering. Although Wang Xinghu was also in the late stage of the Qi gathering, the strength of the sergeants in the army was at least 2 levels higher than that of the local academies. The assistant went through the information of all the students in the 5th Squadron 3 times and did not find anyone who had the strength to defeat Wang Xinghu. But this video, which was only a few minutes long, truly recorded the terrifying strength of this student. Even a foundation establishment cultivator might not be able to defeat him. The assistant had also seen the video of Wang Xinghu's death, but that video had nothing to do with the direct test itself, so it was deliberately filtered out and was not played on the big screen. The assistant watched several videos of this student, but none of them showed his face. All of them were blurry or had his back facing the camera. The assistant sent the videos to many spirit sequencers for processing, but still could not see his face clearly. If I remember correctly, is Ning Xiujie in the 5th Squadron? Qin Zhan suddenly remembered and asked. Yes. The assistant nodded. Could this student be Ning Xiujie? Qin Zhan could not remember any other student with such strength. Very likely. The assistant agreed. Quickly send people to the area where the 5th Squadron last sent out a search and rescue, Qin Zhan said impatiently. The Federation could not afford to lose any cultivator who could enter the Yuanying stage in the future. Even if they could not break through in the end, they would rather make a mistake. Qin Zhan knew very well what it meant to be able to kill a tongue-ripping baleful spirit at the age of 18 or 19. The Federation hadn't produced such a talent in 20 years. The last time such a talent appeared was 25 years ago. Qin Zhan remembered that there was a young man named Li Tianyang who went to the Hades outside the northern border of the Nine Rings space zone alone. After killing several wraiths, he swaggered back. At the time, Qin Zhan was only around 30 years old. Since then, Qin Zhan had never heard of a young man in the Federation who could kill a malicious spirit. Thinking of his old friend Li Tianyang, Qin Zhan couldn't help but feel a little sad. The internal strife within the Federation had never stopped. There was an old saying that went, "Where there are people, there will be politics." Qin Zhan had always scoffed at political struggles and power struggles. If it weren't for the internal strife, the Federation's strength would have increased by 1 or 2 levels. Resisting the Hades wouldn't have been as difficult as it was now. Li Tianyang was a sacrificial lamb in the power struggle. Such a genius was crippled just like that. He was even forced to retire from the army. Even if he survived, he could only struggle at death's door. Qin Zhan was heartbroken that such a genius had fallen so quickly. Losing a fierce general like Li Tianyang was a great loss to the Federation. Having known Li Tianyang for so many years, Qin Zhan knew that it was only a matter of time before this guy broke through to the Yuanying stage. Unfortunately, everything was now in vain. Qin Zhan thought about his old friend's encounter and became more and more anxious. No matter what, he could not lose this rising star. As soon as Qin Zhan gave the order, dozens of soldiers began to move. They quickly formed a search and rescue team and prepared to drive the transport ship to planet Puyun. Just as they were about to set off, a cry of alarm came from the control room. "Discovered the black hole of the Hades." What? Qin Zhan suddenly stood up from his chair and quickly ran to the control room. When he saw the black hole on the screen, Qin Zhan didn't hesitate and immediately gave the order to evacuate. All the executors on the armed shuttle entered the first-level alert state, each performing their own duties and starting the armed shuttle at the fastest speed. Half a day ago, the flying feather in an unknown mountain range on planet Tongue Lashing suddenly couldn't send out any signal. Although the engine had been repaired, it still couldn't be started. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't find the reason. Ding Fugue was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. The armed shuttle he had received for the test was already outside the atmosphere. If they missed the time, they wouldn't be able to board the armed shuttle. Not being able to board the armed shuttle was a small matter, but losing contact with the flying feather was a big deal. Losing contact meant that they were completely cut off from the outside world and couldn't take off. The outside world also couldn't lock onto the position of the flying feather. If they couldn't locate the flying feather on such a big planet, it would be like looking for a needle in a haystack. Once the armed shuttle left, everyone on the flying feather would have to stay on this dangerous planet for a long time. Ding Fugue ordered the repair crew to continue repairing the engine while telling the communication department to contact the tidal armed shuttle that was coming to pick them up. A few hours had passed, and not only was there no progress, the aura of death in the unknown mountain range where the flying feather stopped was getting thicker. The surrounding space also became unstable and even started to distort. Gray clouds covered the sky and lightning flashed. It was as if the end of the world had arrived. Brother Li, can we still leave? Ling Fei looked at the darkening sky outside the window of the flying feather and asked timidly. She couldn't hide the fear in her eyes. Li Daochong stood still outside the window. He had been standing still like this for more than 2 hours. Li Daochong was not looking at the scenery outside the window. 2 hours ago, he had felt that something was wrong. It was not until now that he understood what the spatial perception that Chu Qianyue had emphasized during their special training was. At that time, Li Daochong's cultivation was low and he didn't know much about many things. Most of the time, he was just doing things instinctively. In his opinion, the special training with Chu Qianyue was only to strengthen his body and train his basic skills and resistance. Or maybe it was just to train his balance and react quickly in a chaotic gravity environment. At that time, Li Daochong understood it this way. Later on in the process of cultivation, Li Daochong didn't encounter any problems with space, so he didn't think too much about it. However, 2 hours ago, Li Daochong felt that the gravitational field around him became extremely unstable. It was as if it was jumping and vibrating. Because the amplitude was very small, other than Li Daochong, no one else could feel it. Li Daochong thought that something was wrong with the planet. Was it an earthquake or a volcanic eruption? Maybe the flying feather couldn't be activated because of this sudden spatial distortion. Li Daochong couldn't find the real reason after 2 hours of sensing, and the unknown was always the most terrifying thing. Ling Fei's question made Li Daochong come back to his senses. His expression turned serious. We can leave, but we have to be quick. If we're late, I'm afraid it'll be too late. After saying that, Li Daochong turned away from the window and walked toward Ding Fuguei, who was sweating profusely. Captain Ding, is there an escape shuttle on the flying feather? Li Daochong asked directly. There is, but I tried it before and it couldn't be activated, Ding Fuguei said helplessly. Gather everyone and put the escape shuttle into your Nayu space. Follow me. Maybe I can find a way to activate the escape shuttle. Li Daochong looked determined. He wasn't sure if his idea would work, but he had no choice but to take the risk. It was better than staying on a space shuttle that couldn't move. Li Daochong had a bad feeling about this. If they couldn't leave planet Tongue Pulling in time, they might never be able to leave again. Ding Fuguei hesitated. Li Daochong said anxiously, hurry up. It'll be too late if we're late. Li Daochong's voice was laced with telekinesis. Ding Fuguei only felt his head buzzing and was startled. Seeing that Li Daochong seemed to be a little angry, he didn't dare to hesitate and immediately called for everyone to gather while he trotted all the way to the escape shuttle bay. A few minutes later, everyone got off the flying feather and gathered in the open space outside. The surviving students, veterans, and all the other operators on the flying feather totaled more than 40 people. Most of them were confused. They didn't know why they had to leave the flying feather. The thick aura of death outside made them extremely uncomfortable. We're going to the valley on the other side. We have to get there within an hour. Follow me if you don't want to die. Li Daochong only said one sentence and walked toward the valley. Why do we have to go to the valley? The flying feather will be repaired soon. The engine already reacted. We have to stay on the flying feather and continue repairing it. We'll be able to take off soon, a logistician said unhappily. That's right. It's very safe here. As long as the flying feather is repaired, we can leave immediately. It's not fun to climb mountains at this point. If we encounter dark ghosts wandering in the mountains, we won't even know how we died. I'm not leaving either, a veteran said. Chapter 228. Li Daochong didn't even look back as he walked in the direction where he felt the space was more stable. He naturally wanted to save everyone, but he couldn't force some people to do so. He didn't have the time to explain too much either. Looking at Li Daocheng's back, some people returned to the flying feather ship while others hesitated. However, Ling Fei, Xiao Ying, and Chao Wenxuan followed without hesitation. Ding Fugui wanted to follow as well, but he was the captain of a ship after all. He couldn't just leave his soldiers behind. Ding Fugui ran onto the flying feather ship and said to the veterans who had already entered, "I order you to leave the flying feather ship together." A few of the veterans turned to look at Ding Fugui with disdain. One of them coldly snorted and said, "Damn fatty, you bought your current position with money. Who do you think you are? What right do you have to order us around? Don't think that you can do whatever you want in front of us just because Captain Wang is dead. I'll never accept you. Do you think you can just go with that kid? Who knows what kind of danger we'll encounter? We don't want to go out and die." Ding Fugui's authority was gone, and he felt depressed. He felt that Li Daocheng wouldn't ask to leave the flying feather ship for no reason. There was indeed something wrong with the environment here. The dark clouds in the sky were getting thicker and thicker, as if they were about to fall to the ground. Ding Fugui saw that he couldn't command these veterans, so he could only give up. The little fatty didn't know why Li Daocheng wanted to leave, but he felt that following Li Daocheng was the right choice. Ding Fugui immediately ran out of the flying feather ship and chased after Li Daocheng. Ning Xiujie and the others looked at each other before following after him. The 40 or so people were split into two groups. One group was made up of the veterans, operators, and a few scattered students who didn't want to leave. The other group was almost entirely made up of students. Most of them were convinced by Li Daocheng's power when he killed the tongue-pulling ghost. Trusting someone strong was an irresistible choice for the weak. The other group was made up of a few students who followed Ning Xiujie. Other than that, there were only two people who belonged to the military. One was Ding Fugui, and the other was his trusted aide, Chang Zaishi. A total of 20 people followed Li Daocheng into the forest, surrounded by death aura and fog. Li Daocheng's footsteps were very fast. He knew that there wasn't much time left. He could feel that the space in the distance was becoming more and more unstable, like a violent lion that could swallow everything at any moment. 2. 2's 2. Once again, Li Daocheng discovered that a small number of people had fallen behind and had no choice but to stop and wait. A trace of anxiety appeared between his brows. Go! Li Daocheng used his telekinesis to scan the more than 10 students who followed him. They were all in the Qi gathering realm, which was why they could keep up with him. Those who didn't keep up with him were students who hadn't reached the Qi gathering realm. Ding Fugui hadn't reached the Qi gathering realm either, but he had a lot of gadgets on him. At this time, he was wearing a pair of unknown shoes and walked with wind. He was the closest to Li Daocheng, for fear of losing him. Li Daocheng's eyes finally fell on Ning Xiujie. "Can you still walk so fast if you're carrying a person on your back?" Ning Xiujie didn't know what Li Daocheng meant. She thought about it and said, "Yes." Li Daocheng nodded and asked, "Can you do it twice as fast?" Ning Xiujie said affirmatively, "Yes." Li Daocheng then said to everyone, "Time is running out. We're too slow now. If we go on like this, it'll be useless to reach the valley. The space is getting more and more unstable. If we don't leave this planet, we'll all die." What? All the students were shocked. Until now, they still didn't know why they had to leave the flying feather ship. They only felt that it should be safe to follow Li Daocheng. After all, even the tongue-pulling ghost wasn't a match for him. "There's no time to explain. Bring along everyone who can. If you don't want to die, keep up with me," Li Daocheng continued. 10 minutes later, Ling Fei only felt the wind blowing past her ears and her face hurting. She desperately grabbed Li Daocheng's shoulders and focused all her strength on her hands. Xiao Ying on the other side was the same. However, because her cultivation was higher, Xiao Ying's condition was better than Ling Fei's. Other than bringing Ling Fei and Xiao Ying, Li Daocheng was also carrying another student. He had no choice but to bring 3 people with him. There were some students who could keep up with the speed without bringing anyone, but if they brought someone with them, they might fall behind. Li Daochong had no choice but to bring 3 people, Ning Xiujie 2, and the other 7 students 1. Ding Fugui could keep up by himself. He took out 2 pairs of spare boots and gave them to Chang Zaishi and another student. With that, Li Daochong no longer had any worries and ran as fast as he could. The others vaguely felt that the situation was unusual, so they followed him like crazy. The environment around them became more and more unstable. The trees were shrinking at a visible rate, and there were even mountains in the distance that collapsed. An hour later, everyone followed Li Daochong and finally arrived at the valley he mentioned. After entering this area, it was like entering another world. The range of sight was still stable. After arriving, Li Daochong put down the 3 people and shouted to Ding Fugui, who had just caught up, "Fatty, the life-saving shuttle." Ding Fugui gasped for breath and didn't dare to delay. He quickly released the life-saving shuttle from the Neiyu belt at his waist. The life-saving shuttle was only 10 meters long and could accommodate up to 40 people. There were only 24 people in front of him, so there was more than enough space. Seeing that everyone had boarded the life-saving shuttle, Li Daochong condensed a powerful telekinesis and wrapped the entire shuttle before boarding. Ding Fugui hurriedly started the life-saving shuttle. Fortunately, Chang Zaishi was there to help. Otherwise, this damn fatty wouldn't know what to do. When everything was ready, Ding Fugui's hand trembled slightly. He only needed to press the button to start the life-saving shuttle. He was afraid. He was afraid that if he pressed the button, the life-saving shuttle wouldn't respond. Everything that happened outside was seen by the damn fatty. Ding Fugui knew that Li Daochong wasn't just scaring them. Something big had really happened. If the life-saving shuttle couldn't start, everyone would die. Not only was Ding Fugui's hand trembling, his teeth couldn't stop chattering. A clear sound? En's voice. Just as Ding Fugui was about to press the button, a shout came from behind, "Wait a minute." The one who shouted was Li Daochong. At this time, he was standing at the front of the life-saving shuttle. He looked outside with a dignified expression and sensed the surrounding space. If Ding Fugui had activated it, the life-saving shuttle would have drilled into a space vortex. Ding Fugui quickly retracted his hand in fear and looked at Li Daochong in a daze. More than 10 seconds passed. Li Daochong just looked outside and didn't give any orders. Suddenly, the earth outside shook and the life-saving shuttle shook. "Brother Li, when do we start?" Ding Fugui wanted to cry but had no tears. He didn't know what Li Daochong was waiting for. Wouldn't it be better to start it now? If he waited any longer, he wouldn't be able to leave. Ding Fugui wailed in his heart. What was even more frightening was that he didn't know if there would be a response if he pressed the button. If there was no response, Ding Fugui didn't dare to think about it. "Now, activate!" Li Daochong roared. A bead of sweat the size of a bean dripped down his cheek. Li Daochong didn't know if his prediction was right, but at this moment, he could only follow his instincts. If he was at Jin Dan's or even Yuanying's cultivation, he could accurately sense the movement of the space in the distance. Perhaps he wouldn't be as nervous as he was now. Ding Fugui shivered. His fat hand no longer hesitated and pressed the button. Trick. 9 thorns after the life-saving shuttle's engine started, Ding Fugui's fat face revealed a look of surprise. He immediately pulled the control lever. Whoosh! The life-saving shuttle rose from the ground. The spirit formation below quickly operated and shot out a dazzling light into the sky. The life-saving shuttle's only function was to escape. Therefore, speed was the life-saving shuttle's strongest point. In the blink of an eye, the life-saving shuttle passed through the thick dark clouds and leaped out of the sea of clouds. When they saw the dazzling sun, everyone on the life-saving shuttle was delighted. But soon, they saw a huge black hole appear on the other side of the planet. It was slowly sucking the planet in. The Hades black hole! Ding Fugui screamed. Everyone was shocked. The Hades black hole was the Hades's most powerful invasion method. Could suck an entire planet into the black hole and change space. After the absorption, the planet would enter the endless darkness of the Hades and become a part of the Hades. Just as Ding Fugui's voice fell, the life-saving shuttle shook violently and its flying speed decreased. Chang Zaishi panicked. It's over. We've been disturbed by the gravitational force at the edge of the Hades black hole. We're being held back. Li Daochong frowned. Can we teleport? Chang Zaishi said awkwardly. We can, but under the interference of the powerful gravitational force of the Hades black hole, there might be a deviation in position. Ding Fugui slapped the back of Chang Zaishi's head. So be it. It's better than being sucked into the Hades. Chang Zaishi said bitterly, Brother Ding, there's not enough energy. Li Daochong reached out and took out a storage bag. Are there enough spirit stones in here? Chang Zaishi took it and looked. His nose was running. There were at least a few thousand spirit stones inside. Enough. Originally, Li Daochong didn't have many spirit stones on him. These were all plundered from the dead. Among them, Wang Shenghu and Yang Jin had the most. Chang Zaishi quickly put the spirit stones into the spirit box and immediately activated the teleportation flight mode. Chapter 229. After Qin Zhan gave the order to evacuate, his heart was filled with regret. How could such a talented person go missing on planet tongue pulling? All the students and soldiers of 5th Squadron who participated in the direct test were wiped out? Such a tragedy had never happened in the history of the direct test. The appearance of the black hole in the Hades made Qin Zhan feel a sense of powerlessness. As the head examiner, he had no interest in handing out the direct cards. He stayed in the reference room alone, carefully going through the personal information of all the students of 5th Squadron. Qin Zhan really wanted to know who the student in the video was. At first, he thought it was Ning Xiujie, but later, he saw Ning Xiujie in other battle videos. Ning Xiujie, whether it was her appearance or her back, did not have any resemblance to the student who killed the tongue-pulling ghost. What was more obvious was that Ning Xiujie used an ebony staff as her weapon, while the student used a two-handed long, straight-backed broadsword, which looked very much like a Zanmadeo. Therefore, Ning Xiujie was excluded. If it wasn't Ning Xiujie, then who could it be? Qin Zhan was very curious. How could such a talented person be unknown? If that was the case, then wouldn't the Federation's education system be in big trouble? Planet tongue-pulling had been absorbed into the black hole in the Hades, and had become a part of the Hades. No matter how powerful a genius was, there was no way they could have survived. However, Qin Zhan still wanted to find the student's hometown and see what the reason was that no one knew about such a genius. Sir Qin, are you still not giving up? No matter how powerful a genius is, it's useless if they're dead. Why do you still want to get to the bottom of things? Can't you let them go in peace? Yu Yan silently appeared behind Qin Zhan. Qin Zhan had already noticed Yu Yan's approach, but at the moment, he didn't have the time to deal with this violent woman. He warned her, Yu Yan, stay here. If you don't know what's important, don't blame me for being ruthless. Ha ha, great official Qin, why are you so fierce? I'm so scared. Yu Yan stood 5 meters behind Qin Zhan. She covered her mouth and giggled. Her beautiful eyes revealed a trace of killing intent. Just as Yu Yan's killing intent leaked out a little, a powerful aura enveloped her and locked onto her 3 most fatal weaknesses. Yu Yan, who was about to make a move, was shocked. She immediately stood still and did not dare to move. Qin Zhan was not joking. This time, he was serious. If she dared to make a move, Qin Zhan would be really ruthless. Yu Yan was very clear that there was still a gap between her and Qin Zhan. Sneak attacking Qin Zhan every few days was just a practice for her. If Qin Zhan was serious, it would not be fun. Qin Zhan suddenly made a soft sound of surprise. Yu Yan's beautiful face revealed a touch of interest. What? Did Great Official Qin find something? Qin Zhan did not answer. He just looked at the information in his hands. After a while, he said, "This kid is a bit similar." Yu Yan's interest that had just surged up disappeared. Elephants can't be ridden as horses. Great Official Qin, don't you know such a simple principle? That kid's luck is too bad. He killed a tongue-pulling malicious ghost alone and got a direct pass card, but he couldn't leave planet tongue-pulling. TSK, what a pity. With his strength, he will also shine in the 100 Schools Alliance exam in a month and become the target of competition among the Big Four. It's just that he's probably already become food in the Hades. He's lucky that he wasn't torn apart by the powerful gravitational field of the Hades's black hole. In the Hades there are all kinds of ghosts, not to mention soul catchers. Even a red shadow malicious ghost would be enough to take his life. The information in Qin Zhan's hands was Li Daochong's. There was a full-body photo of Li Daochong on it. All students who signed up were required to take a full-body photo at the registration point. Qin Zhan looked through a lot of information, but Li Daochong's information was the simplest. He specifically went to the Federation's internal personal database to look it up. The results were the same. Li Daochong's life was terrifyingly simple. His parents died when he was young. He was originally from Blue Bay Star and later transferred to Red Sun Star, where he studied at a mediocre cultivation college that was on the verge of being removed. After that, he took the direct pass test. The registration information showed that his cultivation level at the registration point was at the 8th level of the Qi refinement realm. Qin Zhan looked through the 300 documents one by one. Only Li Daochong's information was the least. The other students' information was very detailed, including their birth, primary school, secondary school, university, as well as their parents and family background. After Qin Zhan looked at Li Daochong's information, he only felt that this student was a little too mysterious. Even the Federation's internal personal database had very little information about him. Qin Zhan acted as if he didn't hear Yu Yan's words. After repeatedly looking at Li Daochong's photo, he asked, "Yu Yan, you're a member of the Vanguard Secret Service. Do you have the highest level of access to the files?" In fact, Yu Yan was also a little curious about this student and wanted to know who he was. However, she wouldn't get to the bottom of it like Qin Zhan. After all, he was already dead. However, at this moment, Yu Yan was also infected by Qin Zhan's persistence. Her curiosity was aroused, and she put away her attitude of going against Qin Zhan. She replied, "Yes, why? Do you want me to help you?" Qin Zhan nodded and said, "With my access, I can only find the most basic information about this student. It's very vague. Maybe you can find something else. As long as he was born in the Federation, it's impossible for him to have such simple information. I suspect that someone helped him tamper with it." Yu Yan stepped forward and took the information in Qin Zhan's hand. She looked at it and said, "This kind of information is deliberately hidden. I'm afraid this kid's background is not simple." Yu Yan's words reminded Qin Zhan. His eyes lit up and he said, "If that's the case, then this kid is probably the student who killed the tongue-pulling ghost. Look, they're wearing the same clothes. I've seen the photos of all 300 students. He's the only one wearing the old cyan training uniform. The student who killed the tongue-pulling ghost was also wearing the same clothes. There can't be anyone else other than him. So what if it's him? He's already dead. What's the point of looking into it? It's not like we can bring him back to life," Yu Yan said uninterestedly. "People have to be curious when they're alive. Otherwise, what's the difference between them and a dead fish? Such a powerful guy is unknown." "I don't believe that there's no reason for it," Qin Zhan said with a look of foresight. "Since Great Official Qin has said so, then I'll satisfy your curiosity. However, you'd better be mentally prepared. Perhaps the result will disappoint you. That kid might really be an orphan, and it's only because he had some fortuitous encounter that he became so strong. Yu Yen replied, not very optimistic. As she spoke, Yu Yen turned on her watch and scanned her face. Then, she verified her voice and spiritual energy. It was a tedious authentication process. More than 10 seconds later, Yu Yen officially entered the highest official database. Yu Yen was the commander of the vanguard troops at the front line. She was a lieutenant colonel. In terms of rank, she was inferior to Qinzhan, but the latter's access to information was inferior to Yu Yan's. This was because Yu Yen was a member of the Special Vanguard team. To put it bluntly, she was a special agent. She was only temporarily sent to the front line. Her usual task was to investigate whether the leaders of large families or CEOs of large companies had been controlled by Dark Ghost and turned into puppet. If it was confirmed that they were controlled by Dark Ghost, Yu Yen could execute a decapitation operation and kill the puppet to prevent internal damage to the human race. Thus, Yu Yan's access was very high. Her rank was not high and her position was not high, but she had special privileges. When Yu Yen entered the name Li Daochong, a holographic image was projected. The file immediately appeared before her and Qin Zhan. Yu Yan's expression, which had been languid all this time, suddenly froze. Her beautiful eyes revealed shock. How can this be? He's Li Tianyang's son? Qin Zhan was also stunned. He had never imagined that Li Daochong would be his old friend's son. 3 days later, the rescue shuttle landed on planet Crimson Sunday. The group of more than 20 people finally returned to the human world safely. The communication equipment on the rescue shuttle had been destroyed by the powerful death magnetic field of the Hades black hole. Thus, during the 3 days of flight, the 20 people on the rescue shuttle were still in a state of isolation from the outside world until they arrived at Planet Crimson Sunday. Planet Crimson Sun was in the 4th ring star zone, extremely far from the 9th ring star zone. They should not have come here, but in order to curry favor with Li Daochong, Ding Fuguei gave up what was close at hand and sought what was far away. He had Chang Zaishi drive the rescue shuttle to Planet Crimson Sunday. Ding Fuguei had seen Li Daochong's registration information and knew that he had registered on Planet Crimson Sunday. After getting off the shuttle, the 20 or so students said their goodbyes one by one. They could only take the shuttle back to their homeworld. The shuttle's energy had been used up. Ling Fei and Li Daochong naturally did not have to trouble themselves. Planet Crimson Sun was their destination. Chapter 230. 3 days ago. What? Qian Chonghai sat on a chair in his office. When he heard Yung Byungha's words, his face was pale and he couldn't accept it. Is the news reliable? Qian Chonghai seemed to have aged 10 years in an instant. His old face seemed to have a few more wrinkles. One of my students is the examiner of this direct test. He is in charge of leading the 3rd squadron. The news is reliable. Yung Byung-ha said regretfully. Qian Chonghai's expression was wooden as he sat on the chair blankly. In the end, he wasn't able to take care of Li Daochong. The 2 students he was most proud of today were gone. A day ago, Chu Qianyue sent an encrypted message, but this message was sent 2 months ago. Chu Qianyue asked Qian Chonghai to take care of Li Daochong. Whether or not there would be a chance in the future would depend on luck. According to the time, Chu Qianyue should have entered 13 Specter a month ago. Once she entered, it was as deep as the sea. Whether or not she could come out would depend on luck. Although Chu Qianyue was very powerful, she was only in the foundation establishment stage. Qian Chonghai really didn't think that Chu Qianyue would choose to enter 13 Specter at this time. He always thought that Chu Qianyue would wait until at least the Jin Dan stage before taking the risk. But he couldn't guess what this girl was thinking. After Qian Chonghai received the news, his eyelids kept twitching. He was very flustered and felt that something bad was about to happen. Sure enough, a day later, Young Byung-ha brought the news of Li Daochung's death. The direct test site was swallowed by the black hole of the Hades. Li Daochung's 5th Squadron had lost contact and hadn't returned. Qian Changhai's expression was lonely and he didn't say a word. Young Byung-ha sighed slightly. Brother Changhai, think about it. Didn't you say that you'd rather Li Daochung die a worthy death than see his heart die? Qian Changhai's old face smiled bleakly. Yes, he died a worthy death. My students all died a worthy death. Shouldn't an old man like me also die a worthy death? Young Byung-ha felt that Qian Changhai's mood was a bit off and hurriedly persuaded him. Brother Changhai, as an educator, if you want to die a worthy death, you should cultivate more outstanding students and not let your imagination run wild. Young Byung-ha knew what Qian Changhai meant. After so many years of friendship, he knew too well what Qian Changhai was thinking. This old man probably wanted to go to the front line and die in battle. Young Byung-ha's words seemed to have hit Qian Changhai's weak point and the loneliness on his face faded a little. Although the departure of Li Daochung and Chu Qianyue made him extremely sad, the dead couldn't be brought back to life. At his age, he had seen all kinds of storms. Qian Changhai took a deep breath and calmed himself down. He said seriously, Bing-ha, the 2 students who passed the assessment this time still have weak foundations. I will personally train them in the following time. There's still a month left. It should be enough time for their strength to reach a new level. Seeing that his old friend had gotten over it, Young Byung-ha's heart calmed down a little. He then said, Then I'll have to trouble you for this month. Just focus on training them and leave the rest to me. Okay. Qian Changhai nodded. He still couldn't hide the sadness in his cloudy eyes. He paused for a moment before asking, Oh right, Bing-ha, are we going to attend the joint examination mobilization meeting in 3 days? Young Byung-ha hesitated for a moment before saying, I think we should go and take a look. Beiyang University also has 2 students participating in the joint examination. Qian Changhai said helplessly, It doesn't matter to us. I'm just afraid that the students won't be able to take the blow of ridicule and it will affect their upcoming training. Young Byung-ha was troubled. 3 days later, the Ministry of Education on planet Scarlet Sun would hold a joint examination mobilization meeting. The purpose was to encourage the students participating in the examination. Every time Beiyang University participated in the mobilization meeting, they would become the target of public criticism. Many people thought that it was a waste for such a mediocre university to have 2 spots. They thought that the students who were more qualified to participate would be deprived of their spots. Many schools that didn't have a spot were far superior to Beiyang University in terms of hardware and talent, but they didn't have a spot. Therefore, many schools on planet Scarlet Sun couldn't wait for Beiyang University to be removed as soon as possible. A few schools that didn't have any students participating in the examination would also attend the mobilization meeting. Their purpose was to embarrass Beiyang University. During the previous joint examination mobilization meeting, a student challenged 2 students from Beiyang University who had obtained the qualification. The 2 students were so angry that they were ready to fight. In the end, they were stopped by Young Byung-ha. He knew that those students wanted to embarrass Beiyang University in public. Young Byung-ha was very clear about the strength of the 2 students. He didn't need to fight to know that he couldn't beat them. However, Young Byung-ha wouldn't give up these 2 spots no matter what. Even if he was shameless, he had to occupy them. After all, these 2 spots were the foundation of Beiyang University. Without these 2 spots, it wouldn't be long before Beiyang University became a dead school. When that time came, Beiyang University would really be removed by the Ministry of Education. Who could understand the bitterness in Young Byung-ha's heart? He really didn't want to participate in the joint examination mobilization meeting, but it wouldn't be appropriate if he didn't go. At that time, he didn't know what the outside world would say. Beiyang University had already become the laughing stock of Planet Scarlet Sunday. If he didn't go, it would be strange if he didn't get scolded. Young Byung-ha's philosophy was to straighten his back even if he was stepped on. At least, he wanted to tell everyone that he had fought for these 2 spots openly with his life. However, this time, Young Byung-ha was a little more confident in his heart. Qian Chonghai's training methods were indeed very powerful. The strength of the 2 students who passed the school's internal assessment this time far exceeded that of the previous years. One of them even broke through to the intermediate stage of qi gathering. For Young Byung-ha, this was a big surprise. Beiyang University hadn't had a second-year student reach the intermediate stage of qi gathering for 10 years. He had to admit that his old friend Qian Chonghai was very good at teaching. Chonghai, don't underestimate the students. If they don't have this kind of temperament, then they don't need to cultivate in the future. They should go home and farm. If they can remain calm, it will also be good for them. Maybe it can even stimulate them to cultivate diligently in the future. Although Young Byung-ha said this, it was obvious that he wasn't very confident. Losing face is a small matter. I'm just afraid that those schools will unite to protest. The last time I went to the meeting with you, those old guys mocked and ridiculed. Qian Chonghai reminded them. Their mouths are on their bodies. Let them say whatever they want. Just pretend that you didn't hear them. We'll just show our faces and leave. Young Byung-ha said helplessly. Okay, then you arrange the list of accompanying students. I won't show up for the next 3 days. I'll draw up a training plan. Qian Chonghai nodded. Okay. Young Byung-ha knew that his old friend needed time to calm down, so he didn't want to disturb him. After agreeing, he got up and left. 3 days later, there was a group of 20 people on the field of Beiyang University. Young Byung-ha and Qian Chonghai were the leaders. There were also 2 lecturers. The remaining 16 people were all students of Beiyang University. 2 of them were students who had passed the school's internal audit and obtained the qualifications for the reference. Of the 2 students, one was from a good family and was called Zhang Liang. The other was born in the slums and was called Gao Yu. Of the remaining 14 students, Tan Chiyuan and Xiahou Quan were among them. Ever since the incident with Li Daochong, these 2 fellows had started to work hard. They had been training very hard for the past 2 months and had entered the top 10 in the elite class. The group took the only shuttle bus of Beiyang University to Qiyang University. The location of the Joint Examination Mobilization Meeting was at Qiyang University. Half an hour later, the shuttle bus landed at the parking lot specially arranged by Qiyang University. As soon as they alighted, student volunteers led them to the venue. As soon as they entered the venue, Qian Chonghai's old face darkened. Binghe, why is that old man Yuan Longji sitting at the front desk? Young Byung-ha was also confused. He glanced around and then gasped. Chonghai, that's not right. The mobilization meeting is being held jointly with Blue Bay Star. Why are there so many Blue Bay Star colleagues here? Qian Chonghai's face turned cold. He turned around and was about to leave. However, before he could turn around, he was stopped. Dean Qian, long time no see. Qian Chonghai turned around and saw that it was the lecturer of Xian Tsang University's superclass, Lian Bin. Tian Bo had also walked over with him. Behind the 2 of them was a handsome student. It was Xian Tsang University's number 1, Zhao Wujin. Since they had already walked in, Qian Chonghai could not ignore them even if he wanted to. He could only turn around and pretend to be surprised. Oh, it's Mr. Lian. Why have you come to Qiyang Planet to participate in the Joint Examination Mobilization Meeting? Lian Bin replied with a look of surprise. Why? Don't you know, Dean Qian? Qiyang Planet and Blue Bay Star are mutually beneficial planet. This time, The education departments of both planets discussed and decided to hold a joint mobilization meeting to encourage the students and let them get to know each other. When the joint examination comes, the students from our 2 cultivation planets can take care of each other. The more people there are, the greater the chance of passing. Dean Qian, it seems like you really don't know. Oh right, you're not part of the circle now. It's normal that you don't know. Tianbo said. Mr. Lien, how is Dean Qian not part of the circle? Isn't he the dean of Beiyang University's cultivation school? Lien Bin looked as if he just remembered something. Oh right, Dean Qian, you're part of the circle. How can you not know? Could it be that Beiyang University's level is not high enough, so they didn't inform you? Ha ha, this friend is right. Beiyang University is indeed not qualified. No one cares about this kind of superficial cultivation school. After this year, it will definitely be withdrawn. There's no need for it to exist at all. As soon as Lien Bin finished speaking, mocking laughter came from the side. As soon as Yung Byung-ha appeared, this group of principals who thought that Beiyang University's participation in the joint examination was a disgrace to Qiyang Planet walked over together. Qian Chonghai was not in the mood to argue at this time. He turned a deaf ear to Lien Bin's words and glanced at Zhao Wujin absent-mindedly. His gaze swept past the 3 people and saw many familiar figures. They were all colleagues and students from Xiantsang University. Xiantsang's lineup this time could not be said to be weak. Zhan Honglai was also there. Qian Chonghai smiled bitterly in his heart. Li Daochong's enemies were all here. If that kid Li Daochong did not participate in the direct examination, he should have come to the mobilization meeting with him. Then, he would have been exposed. However, it did not matter whether he was exposed or not. Perhaps that kid was right to participate in the direct examination. He would not be bullied and suffer in front of these people. Chapter 231. Headmaster Chen, you need to have a basis for your words. What do you mean by a fake school? I can go to the Ministry of Education to lodge a complaint against you. Yung Byung-ha was enraged when he heard Chen Huai from Qingyuan University slander him. Headmaster Jing, I'm not one to be scared. If you want to lodge a complaint, feel free to do so. Am I wrong? Beiyang University has less than 3,000 students and teachers, and only has a few rundown houses. If it wasn't for those 2 spots, I think no one would go there, Chen Huai said with disdain. Headmaster Chen, I'm afraid those 2 spots won't be kept for long. 100 schools on planet Crimson Sun have reported to the Ministry of Education, requesting to cancel Beiyang University's qualifications. The reason is that Beiyang University's students aren't good enough. If Beiyang University is given 2 spots, the other schools will have to have them as well. Otherwise, it would be unfair to the students and would have a very bad effect, another middle-aged man standing beside Chen Huai said. That's right. The Ministry of Education's assistant Su Yuliang personally came to the Double-Star Joint Examination Mobilization meeting to resolve this matter. Chen Huai looked at Yung Byung-ha with a sneer. When Qian Chonghai heard this, his old face was covered in dark clouds, and the gaze he looked at Zhao Wujin with was a little more resentful. Yung Byung-ha originally wanted to refute, but the more he listened, the more he felt that something was wrong. 100 schools jointly lodged a complaint? How come he didn't know about this at all? Qian Chonghai had some guesses in his heart. He was afraid that he had implicated his old friend. It seemed that the Zhao family hadn't been idle during this period of time. Headmaster Qian, Li Daochong should be with you, right? Zhao Wujin suddenly asked. So what if he is? Since Zhao Wujin could ask this, the Zhao family must have found something, and Qian Chonghai didn't have anything to hide. That's good. Zhao Wujin sneered and glanced at the students behind Qian Chonghai. He didn't find any trace of Li Daochong, so he continued, I'll have to trouble Dean Qian to tell Li Daochong that our Zhao family is here to find him. Some things can't be avoided. After saying that, Zhao Wujin turned around and left. Lian Bin and Tianbo looked at Qian Changhai with a sinister smile. The other principals of the Scarlet Sun planet standing to the side didn't know what had happened. They looked at Qian Changhai with strange expressions. Although they didn't know what was going on, they could tell that Zhao Wujin and Qian Changhai had a grudge, and it didn't seem to be a small one. Their purpose was to abolish Beiyang University. Qian Changhai was the dean of the School of Revision at Beiyang University, and he belonged to Yongbyung. As long as anyone related to Beiyang University was trampled on, they would be happy to see it. The principals immediately talked to Lian Bin and Tianbo, trying to find out what kind of grudge they had with Qian Changhai. Yung Byung-ha didn't want to be with this group of people anymore. His face darkened, and he said to Qian Changhai, "Changhai, let's find a quiet place." Qian Changhai sighed in his heart. He looked at Zhao Wujin's back and shook his head, muttering, "Can't we hide? We can hide if we die." With that said, Qian Changhai led a few students and followed Yung Byung-ha to an area with fewer people. After taking 2 steps, Qian Changhai froze in place. His mouth was wide open as he looked at a familiar figure standing in the crowd not far away. "Isn't that Li Daochong? He's not dead? What's going on?" Qian Changhai was surprised and happy when he saw Li Daochong. His old face was like a spring breeze, and the previous gloominess disappeared. His old face seemed to have become a few years younger. A few hours ago, Li Daochong returned to planet Scarlet Sun on a rescue shuttle. The group of students who escaped death thanked Li Daochong and went to the port. Ding Fugue immediately went to planet Scarlet Sun to contact the military headquarters and reported that there were still people alive in the 5th Squadron. Xiao Ying was the only one who wasn't from planet Scarlet Sun who stayed. She followed Li Daochong without saying a word. Li Daochong didn't chase her away, but he didn't ask her to stay either. In short, he was quite cold. Ling Fei was curious. Li Daochong deliberately quickened his pace, and Xiao Ying stubbornly followed. "Why are you following Big Brother Li?" Ling Fei finally couldn't help asking. "I want to be his disciple," Xiao Ying said honestly. "Be his disciple?" Ling Fei looked at Xiao Ying in surprise and continued, "Big Brother Li still has to participate in the joint examination of 100 schools. How can he have time to accept disciples?" "I can wait as long as I follow. I can serve tea, boil water, and do anything," Xiao Ying said firmly. "You can go. This isn't a shelter. I already told you that I have no intention of accepting disciples," Li Daochong said indifferently as he stopped in his tracks. Li Daochong had never thought about becoming a master. Not only was Xiao Ying abrupt, but it also seemed like she was making things difficult for him. This made Li Daochong a little unhappy. Tears welled up in Xiao Ying's eyes. She didn't know what to say, so she simply steeled herself and bent her knees, about to kneel. Li Daochong reacted quickly and grabbed Xiao Ying's arm. "Don't kneel. I can't accept it." Xiao Ying was about to cry. "Big Brother Li, just let me follow you. You can concentrate on cultivating. I won't disturb you. I can be your maid." Li Daochong frowned and loosened his grip. He said coldly, "I'm not used to people following me. I have maids. One is enough. It's useless to have more. There are plenty of cultivators who are better than me. Why do you have to take me as your master?" "I'll give you some money. As long as you don't spend it recklessly, it'll be enough for you to use for a while. Go home." Xiao Ying couldn't help but cry. "I can't go back. If I go back, I'll marry that beast in human form that my father arranged for me. I won't marry him even if I die." Li Daochong was a little impatient. "Where you go has nothing to do with me. Give me your wristwatch. I'll give you the money. You can go wherever you want. There are plenty of powerful training halls on planet Crimson Sunday. You can spend money to cultivate there. It's the same. Xiao Ying begged, Big Brotherly, those training halls are just scams. I can't learn anything. I can't even get close to being a famous teacher. They won't want me. Li Daocheng's voice turned cold. So you're pestering me because I'm easy to talk to? Xiao Ying hurriedly shook her head and explained, No, Big Brotherly. Don't misunderstand. I'm definitely not pestering you. Besides taking you as my master, I also want to repay you. You saved me twice on planet tongue pulling. If it weren't for you, I would have been annihilated. So I want to follow you and work for you. Ling Fei looked at Xiao Ying's pitiful appearance from the side and her heart softened. She said, Big Brotherly, why don't you let her do some chores with you? Li Daocheng flatly refused. I said there's no need. Li Daocheng's decisiveness made Xiao Ying feel despair. Was there really no place for her in this big world? Li Daocheng tapped his foot and shot out like a bolt of lightning. Xiao Ying gritted her teeth and followed closely. Ling Fei didn't even have time to react before the two of them disappeared. Fortunately, she was still wearing the pair of gale boots that Li Daocheng had given her. She activated her spirit energy and followed after them. Li Daocheng didn't return to Beiyang University. He went to the underground city immediately. Just as he arrived on planet Crimson Sun, he received a message from Tsing Jiao. In fact, the message was sent a day ago. However, because all the sound transmission spirit arrays on the rescue shuttle were destroyed, he couldn't receive it at all. It wasn't until Li Daocheng approached planet Crimson Sun that he received the message. Tsing Jiao told Li Daocheng that she had obtained the melted crystal, and that old ghost Zhang had also come to planet Crimson Sunday. When Li Daocheng received the message, he naturally went to the underground city immediately. When they heard that Li Daocheng was coming, old ghost Zhang and Tsing Jiao went to welcome him personally. However, when they saw the two women behind Li Daocheng, they had a strange look in their eyes. Ling Fei also didn't know why she had been following Li Daocheng. However, Xiao Ying's intention gave Ling Fei some inspiration. Li Daocheng was so powerful. Following him was the right choice. During this period of time, Ling Fei also admired Li Daocheng's character. On the surface, he looked very cold, but he had saved her time and time again. Li Daocheng said that he didn't know Xiao Ying. However, he did save Xiao Ying twice on planet tongue pulling. He also saved her once. If it wasn't intentional, he wouldn't have saved her at all. She and Xiao Ying were just strangers to Li Daocheng. Following Li Daocheng gave her an inexplicable sense of security. Li Daocheng saw that old ghost Zhang and Tsing Jiao's gazes were strange. He didn't explain and asked directly, Where is it? Old ghost Zhang stretched out his hand and laughed mischievously. It's here. It's a piece of high-grade melted crystal. It weighs at least 1 jin. However, it's more than enough to fuse with your saber. Li Daocheng looked at the pigeon egg-sized dark gold metal in old ghost Zhang's palm. His breathing became somewhat hurried. As long as this thing was fused with Song ink, it could turn Song ink into a heaven-ranked magic weapon in one fell swoop. If one wanted to fly on a sword, they could only do so with a heaven-ranked magic weapon. Magic weapons below the heaven-ranked had no way to fly on a sword. If one didn't have enough spirituality, toughness, and hardness, forcibly flying on a sword would only result in it being scrapped. A heaven-ranked magic weapon was the minimum requirement for flying on a sword. This was also the reason why heaven-ranked magic weapons were called heaven-ranked magic weapons. Li Daocheng was now at the peak of the Qi-gathering realm. He was only one step away from successfully building his foundation. Once he built his foundation, flying on a sword would be a matter of course. At that time, Li Daocheng would also be able to fly on a sword. For any cultivator, that would be the most exciting moment. Chapter 232. Old Ghost Zhang didn't argue. 100 million. This thing isn't easy to find. The market price for half a kilogram of melted crystal is at least 200 million. Brotherly, I'll give you a 50% discount. If it was someone else, I wouldn't even sell it for 300 million. Li Daochong didn't say anything. He raised his watch and gave all the money he had to old Ghost Zhang. 50 million first. Can you exchange the other 50 million with something of equal value? Sure, old Ghost Zhang said bluntly. Li Daochong immediately took out 10 talismans and handed them to Xing Jiao. Manager Xing, do you think these 10 talismans are good enough to be auctioned? Xing Jiao took a look and was shocked. Level 7 talismans. Old Ghost Zhang was also shocked. A level 7 talisman was enough to cause fatal damage to an early Foundation establishment cultivator. It could instantly kill a great ghost level dark ghost. A level 7 talisman was worth at least 5 million on the market. With old Ghost Zhang's experience, the 10 talismans Li Daochong gave him were even more powerful than ordinary level 7 talismans. Old Ghost Zhang then took out a pair of glasses and took a closer look. He was shocked. Enhanced level 7 talisman. The market price starts at 7 million. If it's auctioned, it's possible to get 10 million. Li Daochong nodded. Okay. Old Ghost Zhang, take the extra money. It'll be your salary. Old Ghost Zhang declined. I don't need that much money. It's easy to add melted crystal to your saber. It'll be done in an hour. Brotherly, why are we talking about money? Although old Ghost Zhang said this, his heart was itching. However, when he thought of Xing Jiao's words, eat a small loss and win the trust of the Yuanian cultivator, it'll be hard not to get rich in the future. Old Ghost Zhang put away his greed and said generously. Old Ghost Zhang, we're brothers. You don't have to be polite with me. You have to take the money you should take. Otherwise, I won't ask you to refine treasures in the future. Li Daochong said seriously. Old Ghost Zhang had already given him many discounts. Li Daochong didn't want to take advantage of an old man. Old Ghost Zhang chuckled and said, Brotherly, since you said so, this old man will not be polite with you. Li Daochong nodded and then asked in surprise, You can do it in an hour? Old Ghost Zhang patted his chest. Of course, this old man has some skill. Brotherly, in terms of killing dark ghosts and fighting, this old man is no match for you, but in terms of artifact forging, the number of people in the entire 4-ring star zone who can compare to me can be counted on one hand. Li Daochong didn't expect it to be so fast. In this way, wouldn't he be able to possess a heaven-rank magic treasure in his hands in an hour? Just thinking about it, Li Daochong felt somewhat excited. He had never seen a heaven-class magic weapon before. He didn't know whether the sword on Chu Qianyue's body was a heaven-class magic weapon or not. At that time, Li Daochong's cultivation was too low, so he couldn't see through it. Elder Zhang, can you help me upgrade Song Ink right now? Of course, old Ghost Zhang said with a smile. Li Daochong immediately took out Song Ink and handed it to old Ghost Zhang. The latter picked up the blade and went to the artifact forging room. Old Ghost Zhang had made all the preparations when he refined Song Ink for Li Daochong. At that time, old Ghost Zhang wanted to refine this blade into a heaven-rank magic weapon, but he lacked melted crystals. He couldn't cook without rice, so he could only give up. However, old Ghost Zhang had strictly refined the Song Ink according to the formula for a heaven-rank magic weapon. It had taken him 7 days and 7 nights to refine it. It had taken him a lot of painstaking effort, but now it seemed that his foresight had been worth it. He didn't expect to be able to obtain melted crystals so quickly. Old Ghost Zhang turned and entered the Shadow Serene Square. Li Daochong also followed. Ling Fei and Xiao Ying, who had been standing behind, followed. Xing Jiao looked at the two girls curiously, but she didn't stop them. Although she didn't know what the relationship between the two girls and Li Daochong was, they should know each other. However, Xing Jiao felt that Li Daochong didn't seem to care much about the two girls. From beginning to end, He didn't even look back. He didn't even greet them when he entered the Shadow Serene Square. Of course, no matter what their relationship was, Tsing Jiao would warmly welcome them. She brought Li Daochong and the other two to the VIP reception room and personally served them tea. However, the two girls only dared to stand behind Li Daochong. They didn't even dare to breathe. Tsing Jiao was curious, but she couldn't ask directly. Li Daochong sat on a chair and closed his eyes to meditate. Tsing Jiao didn't dare to disturb him and quietly left the reception room. Time passed little by little. Soon, an hour had passed, but old Ghost Zhang didn't appear on time. The two girls stood motionless behind Li Daochong. They couldn't even feel their breathing. Li Daochong occasionally used his telekinesis to sweep over them. He found that they didn't even dare to breathe. They had been maintaining a cautious state for an hour. It had been hard on them. Li Daochong sighed in his heart. He slowly opened his eyes and said, "Do you want to worship me as your master?" Xiao Ying's face lit up. She hurriedly ran in front of Li Daochong and nodded repeatedly, "Very much?" Li Daochong curled his lips and said, "I'm only at the peak of the Qi gathering. Don't you think there's no future for you to worship me as your master?" Xiao Ying said, "Big Brother Li's talent is amazing. At such a young age, you're already at the peak of the Qi gathering. Your future achievements are limitless." How could there be no future? The corner of Li Daochong's mouth raised slightly. "Are you complimenting me? Who knows what will happen in the future? It's not impossible that I'll be stuck at the peak of the Qi gathering." Xiao Ying's pretty face showed a trace of panic. "Big Brother Li, Xiao Ying is speaking from the bottom of my heart. There's no way I'm complimenting you. No matter what Big Brother Li's cultivation is in the future, Xiao Ying is sincere in worshipping you as her master." Li Daochong said lightly, "I have a set of cultivation methods here. Take it and practice. If you can practice to the second layer in half a year, I'll accept you as my disciple." Xiao Ying took the cultivation method that Li Daochong handed over. She saw the words 9 split saber technique written on it. Xiao Ying was overjoyed. She immediately knelt down and kowtowed 3 times. "Thank you, master. I'm not your master yet. Come find me in half a year." Li Daochong waved his hand. Suddenly, another tall figure appeared in front of Li Daochong and also knelt down. "Big Brother Li, please accept me as your disciple." Ling Fei finally mustered up her courage. Li Daochong had already expected this, so he wasn't surprised. He said together, "Then you two will practice together for half a year. If you can't reach the second layer in half a year, then don't come find me. Go." Li Daochong thought that this was the only way to dispel the two girls' thoughts of worshipping him as their master. The cultivation method that he gave Xiao Ying was the first 2 layers of the 9 split saber technique. It wasn't easy to practice to perfection in half a year. After all, this was a mid-grade earth-tier cultivation method. Even a genius wouldn't be able to master it in 3 to 5 years. Li Daochong saw that he couldn't drive them away and was angry. However, the two girls were already at their wits' end. If he continued to speak ill of them, he was afraid that he would completely destroy the last line of defense in their hearts. That would be no different from killing them. Li Daochong thought of a compromise. It wouldn't be too forceful, but it would also prevent them from following him. In fact, this move was also learned from Chu Qianwei. Back then, Chu Qianwei directly threw a book of Taishu swordsmanship to him, and then it was gone, leaving him to study it. Half a year wasn't long, but it wasn't short either. Perhaps this time could dilute the two girls' thoughts of worshipping him as their master. Li Daochong also wanted them to back off. The path of cultivation wasn't something that could be cultivated just because you wanted to. Li Daochong really didn't have time to teach disciples. He was already too busy with his own cultivation. How could it be easy to find suitable dark ghosts to kill and absorb? He couldn't always bring the two girls with him. It was too inconvenient. Li Daochong had just finished speaking when his eyes moved. He felt a majestic spirit chi soar into the sky, illuminating the entire shadow-secluded square. The light lasted for 2 or 3 seconds before disappearing. The majestic spirit chi calmed down, but it still existed. It was just not as strong as when it first appeared. Li Daocheng's pupils slightly widened, and his breathing became rapid. With a bang, old Devil Zhang excitedly pushed open the door and ran in, holding the Tsang ink in his hand. Ha ha ha, brotherly, this is an accident. My limit is only to refine a low-grade heaven-tier magic treasure. I didn't expect that a small problem would occur during the refinement, but it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. It's a high-grade heaven-tier magic treasure. Congratulations, brotherly. As soon as old Devil Zhang came in, he danced with joy. The Tsang ink didn't change much. It even looked a little older. If one didn't look carefully, they would think that it was rusty. In fact, those spots weren't rust, but were naturally formed after the melted crystal was added. Upon closer inspection, these markings looked like small firebirds attached to the blade, but at a glance it was a rusty blade. Its appearance was similar to the talismans Li Daocheng had sold in the past. It didn't look good, but it was practical. Li Daocheng could clearly sense a trace of melted fire power hidden in the Tsang ink blade. Melted fire was the lifeblood flame of the ancient immortal cultivator Zhurong. It was extremely powerful, overbearing, and tyrannical. Of course, the melted fire power in the Tsang ink blade was just a trace of fire produced by the fusion of the melted crystal and other magic treasure metals. It wasn't real melted fire, but it was enough to cause additional damage to Dark Ghost, and of course, to cultivators. Hey, why are you kneeling? After old Devil Zhang finished speaking, he found that the 2 girls who came with Li Daocheng were kneeling on the ground. No one answered. Li Daocheng didn't explain. He said to the 2 girls, "Get up. Take this bag of spirit stones." Li Daocheng gave the last 100 or so spirit stones to the 2 women. This was the most he could do to help them. Then Li Daocheng took the Tsang ink blade from old Devil Zhang's hand and said, "Old Devil Zhang, thank you." Then he disappeared. This time, Li Daocheng didn't hold back. In the blink of an eye, he was outside the underground city. Looking at the surrounding mountains, Li Daocheng took a deep breath. Just as he was about to return to Beiyang University, a sound came from his wristwatch. Li Daocheng opened it. It was a message from Ding Fugue. "You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories."